This is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. Welcome to the second day of this very first virtual national consultation on Christian education. I believe that we have been blessed since yesterday, and today we will continue to receive abundant learnings and insights from our expert lecturers. But before that, let us start this day with our morning worship. Teach me, O Lord, the way of your statutes, and I will keep it to the end. Give me understanding that I may keep your law and observe it with my whole heart. To teach is to contribute to the total formation of Christian life. Teaching is done by deed and action as well as by word. That is from Thomas Langdon. Let us now sing, Lord, whose love through humble service as was singers lead us in the singing through the guidance of Professor Rafael Ramirez. Let us pray. Almighty God, our loving Father, we are coming together again in your holy presence, glorifying your name for this wonderful morning that you have given us. We would like to offer our sincerest thanks for blessing the first day of this virtual gathering. And once again, we are asking for your guidance and grace as we continue the second day of this momentous event. Truly, O Lord, this pandemic has brought us insurmountable fear in our lives. We are truly challenged on how we'll face this day because of this dreaded virus. As your children, remind us always that you are bigger than all our fears, that your love is larger than all our anxieties, and our uncertainties will just become shadow in your divine presence. May we see that these challenging times be the opportune moment for the whole world to know you as a Savior of all mankind. May you use us as your instruments to bring hope to those who are losing hope. Use us as your hand to touch the lives of those who's losing strength and the will to go on. And may we serve as your heart for those who are downcast and unloved. We pray that you bless our dear speakers this day as you use them to be beacons of wisdom for us to learn and further understand the role of Christian education in the new normal. We entrust everything to you, O God, in the sweet and mighty name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. This is our prayer. Amen. This morning, we are truly blessed to hear the greetings from our beloved resident bishop of the Manila Episcopal area of the United Methodist Church. Let us welcome Bishop Ciriaco Q. Francisco.
All right. A blessed day to everyone. As a resident bishop of Manila Episcopal area, I bring greetings and welcome to the organizers and participants of this virtual uh, consultation on Christian education, and also all of us participating in this webinar. I would like also to thank Wesleyan University Philippines through the leadership of our beloved President Judge Benjamin Turgano for initiating this timely and meaningful conversation on how to address the current realities in Christian education. I agree with Dr. Ramos that we are all blessed by the inputs we received yesterday from the experts, the lecturers, and the discussants. Indeed, Christian education begins at home, nurtured by the church and honed by educational institution. And I would like to see the impact of Christian education in the life of our people as they behave in the society and particularly in leadership. I want to repeat what Dr. Limuel R. Equina mentioned yesterday on the opportunities and prospects for a relevant Christian program. He said, and I quote, "It should be inclusive and ecumenical, interdisciplinary in its mode of teaching and learning, and most especially, it should be transformative." Based on almost all inputs yesterday, the goal of Christian education is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Let me repeat that, for the transformation of the world. If that is so, think about this. The Philippines is the only Christian country in the Far East. But why is corruption, injustice, human rights violation, and extrajudicial killings are rampant in our country? For me, it is a sign that Christian education, if not a failure, does not serve its purpose, that is transforming the society through leadership. Most of our government leaders are products of exclusive, if not religious, institution of higher learning. But what is happening to our country? Corruption is almost in all agencies of government and even in private sector sometimes. Therefore, it is a challenge to us educators. I hope this second day and the last day of our conversation about Christian education will help us not only to think how to increase the membership of our Sunday school classes, worship services, and all fellowship of the church, but let's rethink how we can be agent of transformation in today's world. It is my prayer that this last day of this consultation will help us to find ways how to be effective in our Christian education ministry of the church and institution. Good morning, and may God bless us as we continue this day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bishop Seri Francisco, for the wonderful greetings for our participants this morning. To introduce our guest lecturer, let me give you the Vice President for Academic Affairs of Wesleyan University, Philippines. Here is Dr. Estrella C. Buenaventura.
To our esteemed bishops, our church worker, colleagues in the academy, our dear participants, good morning. Our lecturer this morning is an educator who has been in the field for more than 30 years. For most part of her career, she has been involved in early childhood education and eventually became an invaluable human resource in tertiary and postgraduate levels, all in Miriam College, Quezon City. Throughout the years, she was not only into teaching, but broadly into writing and reviewing books, developing instructional materials and modules, and being a resource speaker for a wide array of topics related to her fields of specialization, both inside and outside Miriam College. She received her Bachelor of Arts in Child Development and Education from Marinol College, cum laude. She completed her Master of Family Life and Child Development at the University of the Philippines and is just recently earned her PhD in Educational Management at the De La Salle Araneta University with highest distinction. Most notable in the long list of achievements is her stint at the Miriam College Child Study Center, where she began her career right after receiving her bachelor's degree. At the CSC, she is fondly called in the institution Trixie. She was called Trixie. She has held various positions from being a nursery teacher to principal. At the higher education unit of Miriam College, she also held positions as instructor and lecturer and chairperson of the Department of Child Development and Education under the College of Education. She was also program director of the Child Development Daycare Center. She's currently the Dean of the College of Education of Miriam College. Outside of Miriam College, she has been involved or is currently involved with a number of government and private organizations. Among these, being member of the Technical Committee on Early Childhood Education under the Commission on Higher Education, various technical committees of the Early Childhood Care and Development Pacific Regional Network for Early Childhood, National Association for the Education of Young Children, and the Association for Childhood Education International. She has authored books for preschool children and has been a book reviewer consultant. She was also an editor and contributor to Sarangola magazine. She is happily married to Raymond Season and is a loving mother to Trey. My colleagues in the academy and participants of the consultation webinar, it is my pleasure to present you our lecturer who will talk on the challenges and opportunities in making Christian education more relevant and responsive in the new normal. Dr. Trixie Marie J. Season. Dr.
Thank,
Season.
yeah, thank you. And good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Benaventura, for that wonderful introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me this morning. I hope that I could share what I know about the challenges and opportunities for us, Christian educators, in the new normal. So, to begin, I'd like to share my slide. So this is one thing I missed, interacting with people. How I wish this is something that we can do in person, but of course, because of the challenges of the pandemic, we can just have this virtual conference. But it's also a blessing because we get to reach out to more people through this virtual presentation. So I was tasked this morning to talk about. Okay, just please inform me if you could see my PowerPoint. Um, for a while. All right, I'll share again. Inform me if you can see my PowerPoint. Can't see it for a while. Let me. Hello. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Not yet, Dr. Trixie.
Yeah,
And the
Not
it's
yet.
taking some time because of the I
The
think
internet connection.
the internet connection. This morning when we tried it out, it was running perfectly, but now, whew. Mm-hmm. Tell me if
um
you're beginning to see it because cannot see it yet.
no po.
Not yet.
It's at the end po, Dr. Season.
Again.
Yes, it's at the end of slideshow. Maybe you can click po the first.
Okay. All right. For a while, let me just see. No, it's in the first. Yeah. Okay. Let me just slideshow from the beginning. Hmm. Can you see it now?
Not yet, Dr. Trixie.
Yeah, but I could see it now. So just tell me if it's there. So
Yes.
sorry about this. We've tried this morning and it worked.
Yes.
Yeah, these are the challenges that
Yes.
yeah we're now
The
confronted
technical
with.
glitches.
Yeah, and PLT informed us that there will be what do you call this
The maintenance. The
maintenance
maintenance. Yeah.
activity today. So hopefully you'll be able to see it. Let me just transfer so that I'll be near the inform everyone to. Can you see it now?
Dr. Trixie, would you like me to share for you?
Yes, please, please. I think that's better for a while. Let me just
Okay po. Wait, apologies.
for a while. Let me just ensure. Okay. All right. So probably it would be good if you can just share.
Yes po. Wait. I'm opening it lang. Okay.
All right. So while waiting, maybe it would be good. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right. So again, good morning. I was tasked to present to you the challenges and opportunities, the S, yeah, in the new normal. Okay, so I'll be basically talking about the challenges that we are all facing. I lost PowerPoint. All right, we lost it again. Is it working? Okay, so these are the challenges and opportunities. All right. So I hope that okay, I could speak to you and get your responses. Okay, so first slide, can you go back? What can you see? Of course, you can see a closed door. Okay. I hope I can see what's on the chat box. Can you describe the the door in front of you? Give me a good description of what you're seeing. I'll be reading some of your responses. What do you see in front? It's closed and it's white. What else? Anyone else? It's a white door. It looks clean. It has handles. Yes. Uh, there's no handle. It's neat. A view of white door as if it portrays as a door from heaven, and then it's clean, it's exciting, it's empty. All right. All right. So thank you very much. All right. So basically, what we see is a door, a closed door. Usually, when it's closed, we equate it with challenges because we cannot see beyond or what's outside the door. It's closed. We clearly see the door, but it's locked. It prevents us from going outside, and it sort of stifles us from, you know, going beyond and seeing what is out there. So basically, a locked door can be equated with a um, with challenges. Next slide, please. All right. So what do you see now? I would appreciate your responses. Anyone? It's an open door. Okay, there's like it's a welcoming door. It's open. Okay, never ending and it's bright. New opportunities. You're right, ma'am. It's an open door. Okay. But can you see basically what's outside? Okay, you can see a lot of opportunities with bright light. It's a new horizon. Okay. You imagine God as welcoming you. All right. So thank you so much. It's an open door with bright light. Yes. Okay. So basically, when you see an open door, you equate it with opportunities. Okay. But the opportunities may not be still quite clear, but you see it as opportunities. Okay, new life. Yes, that's correct. Okay. Next slide, please. All right. I was struck by this quote as given by Miss Priyanka Chakrabarty. Challenges are great opportunities in disguise. Each challenge you accept opens a new door to your success. Correct. So when we see a closed door, when we see challenges, basically you often see that after a door has closed, a new opportunity will open to you and a new door will open. All right. So next slide. So you see when you see challenges, you have to, be very hopeful that there will be opportunities for each challenge. So last March, when President Duterte placed the country under community quarantine, okay, everything closed. Everything stood still. Okay, businesses closed, schools closed. You know, we were all taken by surprise because we didn't expect this. Okay, so we all grappled with the fact that, how are we going to navigate some the school year has not ended yet, especially for the tertiary level. For the basic education, I know that some of the schools are already toward about to end, but not for the higher education. And basically, it really caught us by surprise. So, next slide, please. All right. So most of us, I know that most of us educators were got confused. Okay, we were very anxious. Some of us got depressed because we didn't know what's going to happen. What would the what will happen in the future? Are we still going to continue with educating our students? Or what's going to happen with our with the future? So it really, became a problem, a challenge for most educators. Next slide, please. Okay. So last April, UNESCO reported that there were around 1.5 million affected learners out of 91.3% total enrolled students in 188 countries in all levels of learning. So from basic ed to higher education, all these students were affected because of the closures of the school. Next slide, please. But is this something new? Okay, no, it isn't. Okay, next slide. You have to remember that in 2002, SARS happened. And during that time, around 1,302 schools in Hong Kong closed. And about 1 million children stayed at home, and 50,600 teachers face challenges in using technology to provide education to their students. So this happened in 2002 already, and it's happening again. Okay, so next slide. And last April 2020, it was reported that universities and other tertiary education institutions closed in 175 countries and communities, and over 20 million post-secondary students, 13% of the total number of students, were affected globally. Okay? And they have had their studies ended or significantly disrupted due to COVID-19. So this is a World Bank report, and you could see that, there are really a lot of students and teachers affected by the disruption caused by COVID-19. Next slide, please. All right. So our own Department of Education reported that 748 out of 14,435 private educational institutions suspended operations for academic year 2020 to 2021. Now, let's see from the next slide, okay, where these, okay, how many were affected. So, these closures affected 3,233 teachers and 40,345 learners. So again, next slide for the, okay, so that you'll see where these schools are. So in Central Luzon, okay, there were around 141 schools which closed. For Calabarzon, there were around 121 schools. For Metro Manila, around 96 schools. For West Visayas, around 90 schools. And in Bicol, around 46 schools. So yeah, this closure really affected a lot of our students and teachers. Next slide. Now, how about in the higher education? Now, this data was taken last May 2020. They have not released the new data, but it would be good for you to know that they were able to predict that enrollment in private as well as state universities and colleges will plunge by as much as 70% due to economic hardships faced by students and their families caused by coronavirus disease. Okay, so next slide, please. So you have to understand that CHED, according to the data coming from CHED, there were around 3.2 million students enrolled in higher education in school year 2018 to 2019. And they predicted in May that there will be a 70% drop in enrollment. So there were reasons that they stated as to why it's going to decline. You have to understand that our OFW parents had to come home. This means that they will not be able to send their students. Some of our parents who are employed locally also lost their jobs. Our students had to take care of family members who are sick or who are affected by the coronavirus. Um, Other students had other responsibilities, had to also find work to be able to help their parents. And finally, the fifth reason is mental health. A lot of our students are experiencing mental health issues. And because of that, this was made worse by the pandemic. So because of this, there was the CHED in May predicted that there will be a drop in enrollment by 70%. Okay, so next slide, please. All right. So as a result, in a Senate hearing, Senator Ralph Recto said that there are around 330,000 or almost one third of a million teachers in private schools have had their salaries cut. Okay, so this is better than basically losing your job, but uh, yeah, so a lot of people receive lower salaries because of lower enrollment. Next slide, please. So we have a lot of challenges, and these are the challenges that we are currently hurdling, and it's not only us, but it's the entire world. Okay, so next slide. So let me just share with you the report given by the World Bank um, about the immediate challenges that we educators need to confront at this point in time. It's really one is broad scale institutional disruption, which happened already last March. Okay, and some of our staff and student became sick, and of course we had to uh, provide them with appropriate support, whether financial or moral support. These are the support that we're currently providing them with. Next slide, please. Mass student displacement or loss of vital campus services and support. There are really a lot of students who got displaced, especially our students from abroad or students who are studying here because they have nowhere to go. Good thing, I know that most educational institutions provided, you know, support to these students who were displaced. I know in UP Los Baños, they brought the students home. But how about our students who are studying abroad? I know of certain people, certain international officers had to find means and ways to bring their students back home because they were asked to leave the 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 campus. Okay, so uh, it was really a difficult time for all of us because our students were displaced and we cannot even provide them with support even if we wanted to, basically, of the quarantine or the community quarantine. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so because we had to, think of other ways to continue our services, a lot of us, okay, incurred technical debt. Okay, it's not only in the Philippines, but even in advanced, wealthy countries, they said they found themselves hampered by the use of outdated technology platforms. Okay, I know that each one of us, each institution here, had some sort of a learning management system, but we really didn't rely so much on it because we had teachers, we had in-person classes. But suddenly, because of the pandemic, we had to, we had to look at um, our infrastructure, our technology, and see if we could, continue our services. And we found out that most of the technology we have are outdated. Most of it are outdated. So what did we do? We had to, acquire or upgrade our technology to be able to continue serving our students. Maintaining or closing research operations, including on-campus laboratories and facilities, fieldwork, conferences, external research collaborations. We're doing a research with a university with some faculty members in Goldsmiths University of London, and we had to put a stop to it because we cannot implement our research project. Uh, this, I guess, it's not only us, but a lot of you also experienced this, not being able to continue. We're supposed to finish our research last May, but because of the pandemic, we had to extend it and we had to stop first and then resume afterwards when we were able to navigate to the new normal. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, here is maintaining instructional operations. Okay, including coursework. How are we going to continue? How are we going to give exams? I remember one faculty asking me, how would I know that my students did not cheat? How are we going to award degrees when in fact they have not even finished the school year? So we had to do a lot of modifications, and we resorted to remote emergency teaching. It's not ideal, but that's the best way that we could continue our services. So I guess we we had to navigate and we had to continue our services. So that's the best way that we could do at that point in time. Next slide, please. Curtailing of international mobility, including logistical implications for repatriation or locally housing international students and staff. I was sharing this a while ago. You know, a friend had to really make sure that all her students are safe. Uh, these students are studying in the United Kingdom, and she really made sure that they can come home safe. And it was a nightmare for her because all the flights then were canceled. So basically, it was something that was a challenge for her, but she was able to do it. Another friend from Canada said that it was difficult because some of their students got sick, and they got hospitalized, and they had to call the parents and be with the students. It was difficult, really. It was a challenge, really, for most educational institutions. And then staff and faculty furloughs. This is very sad um, because of the low enrollment. Some faculty and staff had to had to be asked to stop working for a while so that the school can continue its operations. Next slide. So student loan maintenance, okay, including deferrals, others would not be able to pay, but what can you do? And of course, the only Christian thing to do is to really understand the situation. And repayment freezes. Okay, so these are the steps that we took, and we continue to take this. And then equity implications, academic, social, financial, physical, for low income or at risk students, those who are potentially uh, vulnerable for COVID-19. Okay, next slide, please. So if these are the short-term challenges, these I'll be presenting the long-term challenges, okay, even beyond the pandemic, okay? So increased inequity, inequality in access and retention, as most students return at lower levels due to increased financial and situational constraints. Have to understand that our students have family obligations, when you're studying at home. You also have to do other things. Some of our students are supporting their um, their families. Some change their personal circumstances because their parents lost their jobs, and the support networks diminished or dismantled by campus closure. Some students who were on scholarship couldn't enroll because even those supporting these scholarships are undergoing financial crisis. I know of a friend who has an NGO, and she was sharing with me that most of the people who were supporting her her NGO are also experiencing financial crisis. So there. So next slide, please. So there's also a reduced private funding for higher education in terms of household, firms, and other third-party funding. Um, a lot of students had to ask to be, to stop studying because their parents cannot support them anymore, and they were asked to stay home to just take care of the younger ones, or take care of the family, especially if someone is sick. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this one is permanent closures of programs and institutions, resulting in permanent loss of skills and human capital in academic and administrative positions. So if the program is small, institutions, to make the school more viable, institutions would just close these programs, okay? And you could just imagine how many people would be losing their jobs because of this. All right, so next slide. Okay, another long-term effect of this pandemic would be a permanent movement of more programs to online remote platforms, which requires support for us to be able to do this effectively. Yesterday, I don't know if you were able to participate in the webinar sponsored by the Commission Higher Education on Flexible Learning, a lot of participants asked the Commission if it is possible to continue offering online degree programs, because I think this is the best option taken by students. And when you do online teaching and learning, as most of you have realized already at this point in time, it really requires a lot of support coming from administration. Not only support in terms of the infrastructure, but also support in terms of training. We were not really prepared for this. No one was prepared to really teach online unless you took let's say a specialization in teaching online. But for most of us, this is something new. Even the students had to adjust. So I think this would be a permanent movement. This would be a permanent challenge for all of us. Next slide, please. As I've said, there would be a reduced global mobility because people are afraid, and because of the restrictions. This means that if you have students coming from other countries, this may mean that there will be reduced income for you. Um, Social emotional impacts on students and also on teachers of remote teaching and learning. I know that this is very hard because it's difficult, to really just uh, teach online. So attention should be really given to both students and faculty welfare and the development of their interpersonal skills, because this is something that they miss. I was asking my son yesterday how he finds his classes, and he was saying that he's okay. However, he misses going to school and talking to his classmates. So this is something that even if they communicate online, being talking to people face to face is different from using technology to communicate. So next slide. So loss of higher education's contributions to the local and national civic communities and culture, including provision of continuing education, community meeting spaces, centers for performance and visual arts. So instead of being open to the public and sharing with them what we have, uh, we will not be able to do it at a certain point because of the pandemic. And loss of research, including research collaborations across institutions, borders, and disciplines. Although this thing, we are slowly resuming this particular project, but again, it's difficult when you cannot really meet face to face. But we had to really look for other ways to be able to collaborate with other people. And thank God we have technology for this. All right, so next slide. So I was talking about, next slide, please. Challenges. Now, let's see. What are the opportunities? We can revolutionize education. For a long time, we have seen that education needs to really improve. Now, this is the best time for us, uh, Christian educators, to revolutionize and do something about education. So, the first thing that we do, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. Um, we have to partner with other industries. Okay, in revolutionizing education, we have acknowledge the fact that we need others to be able to give a more holistic, a more realistic way of educating our students. So it's important that we have to, we partner or we collaborate with other institutions, particularly at this point in time with tech industries. I know it's hard to do it on your own, but by seeking help from other people, I know the big in tech industries like Globe, PLDT have been doing its best to help educational institutions. So partnering with others would be the best way for us to go. So if you have not done that, it would be a good way for you to start partnering with these institutions. In Scotland, they did this. Uh, they thought that initially they were worried because they didn't want to replace teachers because, you know, before we had this notion that, teachers are there and we don't want to replace teachers, and no one really can replace teachers. But because of the pandemic, we saw that we need this technology for teachers to be able to work effectively, and that is one way for us to navigate this new normal. Next slide, please. Okay, it's important now for us to reframe the vision of the institution. Of course, the difference between a vision and a mission. A vision is what you want to be in the future. A mission is who you are and what you do to be able to achieve your goals. But a vision is forward looking, to be able to know what you want to be, or what you want your graduates to become in the future. So Silmex said that this is just one way for you to reframe your vision. It's asking this question: what do you do? Why do you do it? And what do you do that no one else can do? So it's making sure that you give a different value proposition. What would make your institution really different from the rest? And as Christian um, institutions, we have to also include, our values. What do we want our students to have, okay, in the future, given that these are uncertain times, okay? What are these values? The value to be able to adapt to the new normal and yet, you know, continue caring for others, the value to be flexible and yet be able to, be mindful of people who needs help. So basically, it's one way. This is the time for you to really look at your vision and see what can you do, and how can you help, you know, your 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 other people, your country, and the world. So next slide, please. Okay. Of course, you have to redefine business models and financing options. Okay. As educational institutions, we rely on tuition for us to survive. But we have to be mindful that at this point in time, our students and parents are really having a difficult time in terms of, supporting their children to go to school. So, this is one way to look at and define what your business model would be. Make it accessible, make it easy for your students to be able to pay, you know, do away with fees that they will not be needing at this point in time. Again, that's the reason why I was telling you earlier that, look at your vision and see what is really important at this time and what do students need to know. And from there, look at your business model. Okay. There might be certain fees that we used to ask the students to pay that might not be no longer be relevant at this point in time. At the same time, if you used to ask them to pay before on a certain schedule, why not make it easy for them to pay so that more students will be able to access education. um do away with your old business plan. Try to make sure that this is the time, to improve your resources and at the same time share what you have with others without making it difficult um to enroll or to get the education that they need. Next slide, please. All right. So, reassessing admissions criteria. I know that recently a lot of universities already said that they are not going to um, give exams, and this is a good move. Um, it's a very good move because as educators, we know that there are other ways of, assessing our students. I do not want to downplay the importance of assessment, but, a paper and pencil type of assessment is not the only way for us to know um, if our students will be able to cope with our standards. There are various ways. Okay, and you can either look at their grades, how they performed in high school or in senior high school, or you can ask them to, look for creative ways. You can ask them to give you a sample of their essays or a vlog. There are a lot of ways that you can assess your students without asking them to do paper and pencil admissions tests at this point in time. So reassess your admissions criteria. And I hope that as Christian educators, you will also look into the capabilities of your students that you'd like to admit. Okay, it's not only those who will be able to afford your tuition, but be able to help others who are in need of a good quality education. So next slide, please. Okay. Reconfigure your delivery mode. Okay. As of now, we came from a face-to-face learning, and then some of us had blended learning. Now we're doing online learning. Um, if, for instance, um, the pandemic is over and we resume back, I think online learning would still be one of the options taken by students and parents. So this is the time to be creative. How are you going to deliver your lessons? Good educators do not only plan for now, you also need to plan for the future. If you want to share, okay, your values with others, what do you think would be the best delivery mode that you can take to be able to, reach out to more people, to more students? Okay. So basically, this is one good way for you to be able to really assess how you deliver now and see how you'll be able to navigate even after the pandemic. Next slide, please. All right. this is not the time to compete. This is the time to share. As Christian educational institutions, we have to make sure that we continue to share what we have with other institutions so that together we will grow. Okay. Um, the thing in the past, we used to compete with one another, but this is the time to collaborate. If you have, for instance, a program in which you excel, you can share that with other institutions, and in turn, they can also share their programs with you. That's one. Number two, you can also share materials. Okay. Again, that's why we have the Bayanihan Act, because that's inherent in Filipinos. It is very important for us to help each other so that we can serve more students. So if for instance you're lacking technology, it would be good to partner with others and share what you have, and ask for help in the same way as, if you have more, then share with others. This is the time to collaborate and share what you have with others. So again, this pandemic, one opportunity that we could really say that we can do at this point in time is that we need to replace competition with collaboration. Okay, so next slide. Okay, this is the time to redefine teaching and learning. We all know that when we shifted to remote emergency teaching, that's not the 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 appropriate way to teach our students. But we were left with no alternative but to deliver it in the same way, as we just had to transfer what we used to do in an online learning platform. But again, we are now beginning to understand that it's not just a matter of transferring your lecture to an online learning environment. It You have to develop certain skills. As such, it's important for us to support our teachers, okay, and students to navigate this new platform. So um teaching online entails a lot of things, entails a lot of how are you going to deliver your lessons online? um how are you going to make sure that you're able to reach all your students with no internet access? So again, it entails a lot of work, I understand, on the part of teachers. I guess I was sharing with a colleague that, it's different now because you're basically working 24 hours a day, because when you create a lesson, you make sure that it's appropriate to the needs of your students and that they can work on it. It's not a matter of just, talking in front of your computer and asking them to listen to you, similar to what you do in an in-person class. It's really finding means and ways on how to teach effectively, to, cut information in chunks so that your students will be able to understand it, to make sure that you get directly to the point so that, and again, a change of mindset that our students really does not need us they do not need us all the time. Okay, because we have this notion that teachers are vital, that we have to be there to guide us in every step of the way. This is the time for us to teach agency, or for us to teach our students that, they can learn on their own. Okay, and that they can do things with a little guidance from us. Okay, and also in terms of learning, How do you think our students learn? Um, so again, it's different when you teach them in person. And when it comes to learning, our students have to also establish their or have to discover the best time that or the best way in which they will be able to acquire all the information or apply the information that they have gathered through the materials that we have given them, it takes a while for our students to discover it, but when we have this mindset that they will learn and that we trust that they're going to learn, it's something that will help them. Okay, so that's the reason why I really like flexible learning, because it provides students with an avenue to discover how they're going to learn and the best time wherein they're going to learn. Most of our students, the young ones now, they would prefer working on the course packs or on the materials that we have given them in their own time. That's why I was telling other teachers that please do not give a specific schedule for certain courses, because our students will be able to, they don't work that way. Okay. Especially in an online learning environment, you have to trust them. They will do the work based on their own time frame. Okay. So we have to encourage and we have to redefine the way we teach. And we have to redefine also the way our students learn. That's one beautiful a feature of flexible learning. And at the same time, hopefully that you're able to help them with that. Okay. And next slide, please. Okay, this is a good opportunity for you to sustain your values. Okay, I'm even with the pandemic, as Christian educators, it is important for us to you know to remember that we have to make sure that our values are intact. Let's not forget our students who are you know who need our help most. Let's not forget those students who are lost. Let's not forget the students who require further assistance. Okay. Um, what is important is that even during a pandemic, we remain true to our values. We adhere to what we believe in, because I think that's really the most Christian thing to do, to be able to help others, especially those who are in need. Um, be able to share um, values with them, and hopefully they'll be able also to live out these values so that you know we can improve as an institution, as a nation, and we can be able to leave something behind. That's our legacy. Okay, so again, continue to sustain your values. Let's not forget those who are lost. Let's not forget those who are underprivileged, because this is the best time for us to make them realize that we are there to help them out. And this is the true essence of Christian education. So, okay, that's the end of my presentation. I hope that I was able to share something with you. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for the very inspiring lecture, Dr. Trixie. Indeed, challenges will always be there because of the pandemic crisis, But this also open our opportunities to make Jesus known through Christian education. We shall now proceed to our open forum. You may write your questions in the chat box, or you may raise your hand for us to unmute you for you to personally ask your question to Dr. Zison. But beforehand, we would like to recognize the presence of Dr. Bener Actarap, who is joining us from Nashville, and who will also be our speaker later during our worship service. Likewise, we are very delighted to recognize Bishop Pete Torio, who is also joining us today. So let me check now the chat box for your questions. Okay. So most of the messages, Dr. Trixie, are congratulatory remarks because of the lecture that you have just shared to us all. They're very thankful.
Yeah, Dr. Rabas, I think there is one.
Okay.
I was looking at the chat box. Collaboration is good
Yes.
and very ideal, but there is a need to compete in the number of enrollment due to revenue purposes.
Yes. What can you say about that, Dr. Trixie?
You know, as I've said, look into your vision. Um, what makes you unique? What makes you different from others? I think that's one important step, because if each educational institution is unique, there is no need to compete.
Mhm.
What you can do is to share what your uniqueness with others. I know it's very ideal, but yet I know that we can achieve this. This is, you know, the time we're in, we have to share our resources. If we're going to just think of our own institution, I don't think we will be able to survive. Um, but by collaborating, for example, if you have certain instructional materials, share it with others. It's That's the only way. If you give, I think if you give more, you'll be blessed immensely. So it's easier said than done, but I have seen institutions collaborate, and because again, if you have a different unique proposition, why would you compete with another institution?
Yes.
So this is something that we can do if we just be open. So please replace competition with collaboration.
Yes, that's true. So this is not the time to compete. This is now the time to collaborate. Thank you, Dr. Trixie. I think it's also the same question that came from Dr. Fallier, that there are also many different reasons for competition: students, degree programs, faculty, etc. But however, as what was mentioned by our dear speaker, this is a time to collaborate. Okay, let us join forces to answer the problems that we are facing
Yeah,
these
you
days.
can share your faculty. Why not?
Mm.
You have this, consultation meeting. You have this consultation conference. This is the best way for you to come together and see if you have faculty who are excelling in a particular field. Then allow. This is the time to be fluid. As what my president was sharing with us as well. That um, again, why will if yours is different, then there's no need to compete because each one would have its own strength. So there.
Thank you, Dr. Trixie. Another follow-up question from Dr. Fallier. Yesterday, there was this question on curriculum. What we do with our curriculum at present, and what kind of curriculum do you think is relevant this time?
Oh, all right. So I guess look at your own curriculum and see what do you think would be. I think all programs are very relevant. Okay, it's just a matter of looking at what your students will become after they graduate. Okay. So if you're going to look at your curriculum, please look at the essentials. Okay. At this point in time, look at what I'm not saying that not everything is essential, but what do you think your students would need at this point in time and learn at this point in time for them to be able to acquire the competency that you want them to have? Okay, so look at your curriculum and really see what is essential at this point in time, and develop it so that your students will acquire more with less. This is what I'm saying, acquire more with less. So look at the essential things that is present in your curriculum, and focus on those so that your students will learn more. The thing in the past is that we try to give them everything, and we are assuming that they all need these things to be able to gain certain competencies. But this is the best time to really, you know, take a hard look at what you're doing and what you're giving your students. And again, the best way for you is to focus on what is essential, and provide them with this things so that they'll be able to acquire the competency. You remember, you have to focus on what the outcomes would be.
Thank you, Dr. Trixie.
Yeah.
This is another question. Our speaker mentioned of reframing the vision of the institution, which is really good. But is it only to adapt the challenge of the current situation?
No, you go beyond. You go beyond. Learn from the challenges now that you're encountering as an institution, and see how will you frame your vision so that your students will be able not only to survive, but also to adapt to the new normal, because this kind of situation will happen again. This is not the only time that this is going to happen. It will continue to happen, believe me. We've seen that in SARS, and I think in the 1900s, when the bubonic plague happened, schools also had to close. So it's really a never ending process. So again, when you look at your vision, you have to look beyond what's happening now, but making sure that you equip your students and your institution um, with the proper skills so that whatever it is that would happen will be ready.
Thank you, Doc. This is another question. It is ideal to redefine business models and financing options, but there are implications on the financial needs and requirements on the part of the educational institutions. How do we go with that concern?
Okay. Redefining business models and financing options. Okay. So yes, uh, the reason why I said you have to redefine business models and financing options is basically for more people or for more students to be able to um, to enroll. That's one way of attracting students. I know of an institution um, who allow their students to enroll by paying 5,000 pesos. It's a big university, okay? One of the oldest universities that we have, okay? Before, you cannot enroll with just nearly 5,000. But because of that, okay, they were able to attract more than 10,000 students, okay, alone for this pandemic. Again, that's one way of doing it. Being able to make it affordable, and yet you're also helping the parents of these students, find time to be able to earn so that they can pay. It's not really, um, really doing away or giving education for free. We cannot survive with that. But what I'm saying is that make it affordable, make it easy for your students to be able to pay so that you will survive. At the same time, you're also helping your your the parents of your students. So again, um, um, the payment options, before, if you used to ask your students to pay monthly, why not allow them to pay semi-monthly? So again, there are a lot of options that you can take without really sacrificing, the needs of the institution. But be very creative and be very mindful that these are difficult times, so you have to adjust. Okay.
Dr. Trixie, this is a follow-up question. Our educational institutions are financially hard up and opting to apply loans. Vouchers from the government are not yet given. What can you say about that in order for the institution to survive?
Okay. In order for institutions to survive, okay, there's so many things that you can do, but one way to do it is, again, making sure that it's uh there would be a very good payment scheme for your students. That's one. Number two, look for grants. Ang dami pong grants. If you have a very good proposal, you could look for grants. There are so many innovation grants given by the Commission Higher Education. Apply for those grants. I was able to help. We were able, well, for my college, I was able to help an employee continue her work because of certain grants that we were able to get. So be very and find other options also, like for instance, be creative. There are so many materials. I don't know if uh, there is a school in Central Visayas called which was founded by the Bernidos. Wherein, because they had difficulty hiring teachers, during that time, they proposed the dynamic learning program, in which they had experts uh, what deliver lectures, and at the same time, the other teachers would just reinforce this learning. There are so many things that they can do. And what happened to them? Most of their graduates went to UP afterwards. So, with little resources, you can become creative. So again, the first suggestion that I could really give to you is to make sure that you make your tuition fee. I'm not saying to lower your tuition fee, because that's our bread and butter, but to make sure that our tuition fee is something that our students will be able to afford, by making sure that the payment scheme is something that would be helpful to them.
Thank you, Dr. Trixie. Another question goes like this. What can you say about this so-called education for life or life-based curriculum?
Okay, basically it's something that we call that lifelong learning. It's something that yeah, we all need at this point in time, but basically all kinds of curriculum would really um, have to uh, prepare our students for life. That's the reason why I was sharing with you that this is the best time to collaborate and partner with industries, because that would really prepare our students for the real world. It's not just, because inside the campus, inside the classroom, we're creating a simulation of what would happen. But if you partner with industries, if you partner with the world of work, you're bringing work inside the classroom, so that they'll be able to have the competencies needed for them to be able to, you know, um, deal with the challenges of life. So, so there.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Trixie. I'll be entertaining two more questions because of the interest of time. So, what can be the ways to monitor the character formation of the students on the current mode of learning?
Okay, one way is, I guess, most of us are doing this, but not all students have realized the importance of this. Is sometimes what we do is you ask them reflection papers. You know, um, when you reflect, that's one way of you finding out the things that they value most. Okay, the things that they do to be able to apply the learnings. I guess that's one way of monitoring. Another way is for talking to them. Okay. Um, I know it's difficult, especially if you don't have access to internet, but it would be good if you could just say hi, even through messages, or through Viber or Messenger or whatever app you have, to really ask them how they are. That's the first thing that we forget as educators, eh. When we talk to our students, we immediately go to the lesson. But basically, before you start any lesson, you ask your students how they are. Okay, that's how you monitor them. That's how you know what they're feeling at the moment. That's how they're able to share, their challenges with you. So it's good that you constantly communicate with your students and find out how they are. It's not difficult. Just one text message, or even you find there are so many ways in which um you could really communicate with your students at this time, and that's how you begin to learn more about them and learn how you can address their needs.
Thank you, Dr. Trixie. So, I would like to share one of the insights that came from our participants. It came from our beloved Bishop Pitorio. So, he mentioned we will have competitive edge in collaborative effort towards transformative results. In so doing, we continue to celebrate our uniqueness and offer what we really do best to serve our stakeholders. Together, we mutually affirm, respect, and strengthen each other and the Christian institutions that we represent. Thank
Yes,
you.
well said.
Okay. So there are still remaining questions, but somehow they are very related. So thank you so much, Dr. Trixie
Thank you.
Season, for your wonderful, very insightful lecture to all of us. We are truly
Thank you.
benefited. Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Doc.
Thank you for inviting me.
We shall now proceed to the next part of our webinar, and this is now the panel discussion on innovative plans and programs in implementing CE programs. So let me introduce to you the speakers one by one. Dr. Florita V. Miranda is the president of Wesleyan College of Manila since 2003. She is also the president of the Asia Pacific Association of Methodist Related Educational Institutions. Dr. Miranda is the editor in chief of the Methodist Vision Movement, the editor and consultant of the Methodist Centennial Book, and a member of the following: World Council for Curriculum and Instructions, USA, Council of Management Educators and Practitioners, Moral Force Movement Philippines, Philippine Women's Christian Temperance Union Incorporated, Phil Delta Kappa International, Philippine Association for Teacher Education, Foundation for Upgrading the Standards of Education, board member of the Kolkata Institute of Management, India, an advisor of Gawad Tanglaw, which means Sagawad Tagapuring Akademisya ng Aninong Gumagalaw. She was also a technical panel member of the Presidential Commission on on Educational Reform. She was a fellow at the Wahar College, Hong Kong. Dr. Miranda holds a PhD in Management for International Academy for Management and Economics, a PhD in Management from Wahar College, Hong Kong, an MA in Education from UP Diliman, and graduated with honors BSE English from the Philippine Christian University. Currently, she is a PhD candidate in Research and Education, UP Diliman, and PhD candidate in Organizational Development, SAIDI. Also, she is a lieutenant commander of the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary 119 Squadron, an educator, professional lecturer, author, editor, research consultant, ESL specialist, urban poor women and youth advocate. Let us welcome Dr. Florita Villanueva Miranda.
Maraming salamat po for a very kind introduction. And isang mapagpalang umaga sa lahat ng naririto at nakiisa sa atin sa ating pagtitipon ngayong umaga. I am deeply honored to be a part of this very vital conversation. And I would like to thank Wesleyan University Philippines, Cabanatuan, and its president, President Bentorgano, for this initiative. And the topic is very timely as much as we speak today. The Methodist schools, colleges, and universities are also having the same conversation. And the key word in this is innovation. By the way, I would like to thank Dr. Season for a very extensive articulation of the challenges and opportunities in making Christian education relevant and responsive in this new normal. As I said, the key word in our discussion, be it with IAM School May or in today's conversation, is innovation. Innovation is no longer a luxury for us today. It has become a necessity if we are to remain relevant as Christian educators. Human history tells us that all evolutionary ways, from prehistoric, agricultural, industrial, and digital, have launched innovation and practically altered the way we live. And the present COVID-19 pandemic has led us to disruptions that are both challenging and exciting. I believe that today's gathering will help us look past and beyond present difficulties and problems to create a future together as we see opportunities unfolding. And those opportunities were already mentioned by Dr. Season a while ago. Be that as it may, this new normal shaped the way we look at things. It made us question the way we used to do things, the way we think about how we do things, and the limitations, financial, physical, emotional, or even mental, that lurk both from within and in between. However, this disruption also gives us the needed window to rethink and reimagine education like never before. For we all believe that learning does not have to stop. It has to evolve and move forward. As Martin Luther King Jr. so prophetically said, if you can fly, then run. If you can run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving. So this is the essence of a bold life of action. Keep moving forward. This is the kind of perspective that we have to adopt in this major paradigm shift in education of a post-COVID world. The question is, where do we go from here? The present pandemic scenario, or what we commonly call the new normal, has taken on a meaning that is bigger than what it should have or it should mean, and practically because of the following reason. It changes or alters the concept or of the way we look at space and time, which is physical space and time, and space within time, virtual space and time. And there's the generational shift. Therefore, it ushers a new way of doing things. The house of things, be it in government, business, economy, religion, and of course, education, has been changed. And it forces us, especially baby boomers like me. Well, shout out to those fellow baby boomers in this virtual meeting and many others in administrative positions, for us to radically change course and adapt to new ways of doing things. A call for genuine transition across cultures, across generations, and across human defensive walls. For the socially dependent man, this changing house breed isolation, mental stress, emotional exhaustion, anxiety relative to the uncertainty of this present situation. Admittedly, though, there is no turning back. and on we go. But there is one thing that remains immovable and unchanging, and that is the why of doing things, the unity of the opposite, which is multi-generational, multi-sectoral, and multicultural. Yes, it is the unity within us, believers, that serves as our launching framework as we leapfrog to somewhere we all wanted to be, a shared path, a shared goal, a shared vision. Navigating through this transition is multi-generational, as I said, yet it is the fundamental unity of our God-given diversity, as mentioned a while ago by Bishop Torio, that led us to be part of today's conversation. Quoting from the letter of President Ben Torgano, so we in church and academe may listen to their voices and insights and together generate a shared vision on the future of Christian education. And yet, today, we listen to the voices of different generations, the different sectors, the different cultures, and even different mind-boggling perspectives. But our way forward, though, allow me to, let us reflect on what we have in common, our common denominator. This new normal requires a shift in the way we think and plan for the future, but the bond that holds us together remains solid and steadfast. So let us begin with what we have in common, and I am speaking from the Wesleyan heritage and tradition in education, the essence of which remains whole, relevant, despite and in spite of this new normal, the unity of vital piety and learning. It could be spirituality and scholarship in other institutions, or piety and wisdom in other institutions, as well as living life following three simple rules: do no harm, do good, stay in love with God. As Christian institutions of learning, what do we value most? I think that was also raised by Dr. Season a while ago. How may we continue to impact individuals, families, communities, nations? And again, I'm quoting from the letter of President Ben Sergano. Now, as an inclusive group gathered this morning, I can suggest the following steps as we move forward and make Christian education relevant to this new normal. But first, we have to revisit our fundamental why. And I find inspiration in Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think, or should I say, teach about this thing. And I think this is something common to us all. As we do what we have learned, heard, and seen from the Lord, then the peace of God will be with us. And that is the fundamental framework that we should have. Then after that, we can reimagine engaged learning. This was also mentioned by Dr. Stephen a while ago. So what is engaged learning? Engaged learning was actually the theme of our recently concluded global forum. It means that no matter how we change the modalities of learning, the fact remains that learners need to be engaged with the learning materials, with other learners, and with a shared sense of purpose. The engagement theory of learning is basically a framework for technology-based teaching and learning introduced by Kersley and Snyderman, which can be summarized in three components. First, they say it's relate, and I would say, as a Wesleyan believer, that we connect and relate as we stress teamwork and collaboration. Then the second component is create and I would say innovate. We focus on creativity and the sense of purpose that we have. The third component is to donate, to share, resource sharing. But sharing alone means 50-50. So I would like to add the fourth component, which gives us the uniqueness of a Christian educator, and that is giving back, to go beyond sharing, to give a piece of ourselves. As what Dr. Season a while ago said, you may have your strength that others do not have, and be able to give back by sharing that strength to them. because to give back is an act of worship. And after reimagining engaged learning, we can forge connections and partnerships. At the moment, the International Association of Methodist Schools, Colleges, and Universities, through its regional association, APAME, the Asia Pacific Association of Methodist-related educational institutions, the Methodist International Student Exchange Network, the ALAME, or the Latin America Methodist Institution, are coming up with a conversation on how to move forward in this new normal. And in our last virtual meeting last September 17th, I think April was there with us, we noted this exciting development. Number one, to use technology and data to strengthen global engagement of students through virtual intercultural programs and service learning systems. Number two, design a common framework that will highlight our shared values and appreciate the unique contribution of each member of the network from across the different regions of the world. And number three, to include and promote the involvement of all stakeholders, faculty, staff, administrators, or even, I would say, parents, in the shared undertaking. These partnerships and connections are meant to see past and beyond the problems. But my brothers and sisters, we still have to dot the I's and cross the T's to move forward. Then again, another important step will be, it's an eye-opener for me, of course, leveraging the support of government, community, parents, and the Filipino Bayanihan spirit. March 2020 reminds me of the tragic Ides of March. Historically speaking, from now on, March 2020 will be remembered as the time when all schools in the world closed their doors. Since then, people all over the world recognize the value of education. This pandemic has galvanized sectors in our society to support education like never before. As I said, this is an eye-opener for me. We have just celebrated 20 years founding anniversary celebration of Wesleyan College of Manila, virtually of course. Instead of the usual parade, field demos, all sorts of activities, our students, faculty, staff, administrators, and parents were celebrating together in virtual platforms. Never have I seen the kind of enthusiasm that parents showed as they sang, danced, wrote essays, recited poems together with their children, thanking and expressing their appreciation for what the college has done for them. Never in the years that I have been with Wesleyan that I've seen that. So let us make use of the opportunity to strengthen our local ecosystem and develop new mindsets among schools, communities, and homes to support our learners. Then, of course, the most important one is like what Dr. Season a while ago said, we have to create the team. And what is the team? Like the now commonly used platform for connection, the Microsoft Teams, we need to create a team of kindred spirits, of like-minded people who will represent our common aspirations, our shared goals and dreams as we chart a new vision on how we can emerge stronger in a post-COVID world. For it is the team that make the dream work. The APAME Meissen Moving Forward Connection created 3 teams: the Opportunities and Challenges team, the Guidelines and Framework team, and the Innovative and New Initiative Program team. So at this point in time, we can start by doing or choosing the people who will represent us from different institutions and try to start to collaborate, as what was also mentioned to us by Dr. Season. And I would like to share a poem that was inspired from Ephesians 4:3-6. It's the team that works. The Lord does not look for a star or soloist, but willing and selfless workers. He needs committed servants, a team that values one and the other in all that matters. And teamwork makes the dream work. Watch the geese flying in classic V formation. Whether they flap, rotate, or honk, their collective goal fosters the team's determination. Surely, burdens are lighter when believers work together. This we understand. No work is insignificant as things as things work together for good according to God's plan. Lord, may our strength lies in each other's uniqueness, in the bond of your peace and love for everyone. For as members of God's family, we are led by your Holy Spirit when we accepted Jesus, your loving Son. Just as we are led today by his Holy Spirit when we decided to be part of this noteworthy conversation. May the Lord bless us all and the plans that we have for Christian education. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Miranda, for the very insightful talk. Indeed, challenges present wonderful opportunities to know Christ further and to make him known. At this juncture, we would like to recognize the presence of a retired bishop and member of the College of Bishops of the United Methodist Church. We are truly honored to have with us Bishop Emerito Nakpil for today's webinar. To continue, may I now introduce you our next lecturer. She is an ordained elder of the United Methodist Church and has been an academic dean of Union Theological Seminary, Philippines. For several years now, she has multiple roles as a global leader in the United Methodist Church and currently leads as an executive director of GBHEM, Lead Hub Philippines and Southeast Asia. Is an officer of the Philippine Association of Methodist Schools, Colleges, Universities, and Seminaries, or PAM schools, and a member of the Executive Committee of the Central Conference Theological Education, Fund of the General Board of Higher
Ah,
Education,
Shirley,
Administrator
Shirley,
of the United Methodist Church. In 2017, she earned her Doctor of Theology from the Atisaya Theological Union. She also has several other degrees, to name a few: Master of Arts in Theology, Cross-Cultural Contextual Theology from Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam. Amsterdam, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Holland in 2004, and the Master of Theology, Biblical Studies from Southeast Asia Graduate School of Theology in 2005. Her Master of Divinity, summa cum laude, is from Union Theological Seminary in 2000. She studied at Harris Memorial College, where she took AB Christian Education for 2 years, and then finished Bachelor of Religious Education, cum laude, from Union Theological Seminary in 1996. She has been to Africa, Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore, South Korea, Israel, for the Palestine, Norway, Switzerland, USA, as a representative and speaker to various international conferences. Our speaker has also served different local churches, including the PCCL University Church inside the campus of Union Theological Seminary, Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to give you Dr. Connie Semi Melia.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I could not see myself. Okay, ready na? Okay, it's there.
Yes, yes.
Good morning, everyone. I bring you greetings from Union Theological Seminary, Philippines, from the Philippine Association of Methodist Schools, Colleges, Universities, and Seminaries, or PAM schools, and the GBHEM Lead Hub Philippines and Southeast Asia. Of course, GBHEM, or the General Board of Higher Education and Ministry, is one of the 13 general agencies of the United Methodist Church. The task that you have given to me, to us actually, is the presentation of innovative plans and programs in implementing Christian education. Okay. And so I will be sharing my, okay. Okay. slideshow. Okay. Christian education matters, and I would like to say and inculcate and highlight that it is very vital in the life of the church because Christian education is from womb to tomb. But in order for us to innovate, because our task is to give some innovations, I would like to say that in order for us to innovate, we need to know the basic first. So what are the basics of Christian education? There are at least six basic areas to consider when planning for and building an educational program in the church. And what are these six areas? First, we have the concept. Second, we have the purpose. Third, we have the context, which is very important, although everything is important. The fourth one is the content. And then we have the participants. And of course, we have the process and method. So there are also key questions for each of these basic building blocks. So under the concept, these are the pertinent questions that we need to ask. What is Christian education? I think Ate Phoebe and our speakers yesterday were able to define articulately and concisely what Christian education is. So how do we define this term? What does it mean to call something education? And what does it mean to say that it is Christian education? Under the purpose, these are the pertinent questions. The first one is, what is the purpose of Christian education? Why do we do it? What do we hope to have happen? Of course, for the context, this is the pertinent question that we need to ask. Where does Christian education occur? What kinds of settings and environments are important? And under the content, these are the questions. What is taught, studied, and learned? What kinds of knowledge do Christians need to have? What will we teach? And for the participants, who are the participants in the ministry? What do we need to know and understand about them? And for the process and method, these are the pertinent questions. How do we do it? How will this education be done? What process and methods are appropriate to use? And how will we choose them? So let's just have an overview of this basic concept before we'll go to some innovative plans and programs. So concept, what is Christian education? Daniel Alishar defined Christian education as an education that involves tasks and expressions of ministry that enable people four things. First, to learn the Christian story, both ancient and present. Number two, to develop the skills they need to act out their faith. Number three, to reflect on that story in order to live self-aware to its truth. And number four, to nurture the sensitivities they need to live together as a covenant community. So let us look at this definition. First, to learn the Christian story is the what, no? It suggests an instruction process that provides people with the information and facts that they need about the story. The second one, to develop the skills, is the how. They need to act out their faith. It suggests a focus on action in the world and points out to a liberation process. Number three, to reflect on that story in order to live self-aware is the why. So we have the what, we have the how, we have the why. No? It calls for a personal development approach with an emphasis on growing and maturing in knowledge of self and one's individual faith and journey. Number four, to nurture the sensitivities to live as a community is the where. suggests a socialization process with its emphasis on participation in the community of faith as a way in which to learn what it means to be Christian. So of course, we have the 5 Ws and 1 H: the what, the where, the why, the how, and the who. And who are the who? Of course, it has been articulated yesterday, no, to all the people in the church. It's not only for children, it is intergenerational. And the location of this is actually basically in the home. So we use Deuteronomy 6:4-9 as our biblical reference. Hear, Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. Teach all these commandments to your children when they rise up, when they lay down, when they get out from the house, when they enter the house, put it in the doorpost, and then bind them around their wrists. So it means that Christian education must be every time. Okay, then let's proceed to the purpose. No, why do we educate? How do we do Christian education? I like this quotation from Dr. Eleazar Fernandez, the president of Union Theological Seminary. He keeps on saying that, what is the purpose or the use of speed if we don't know where we are heading to or what direction we would like to go? Diba? Ang bilis-bilis mo nga, takbo ka ng takbo. The question is, where are you going? Saan ka ba papunta? So the purpose is very important. Why do we do Christian education? Thomas Grom claims that the purpose of Christian education is to enable people to live as Christians. That is, to live lives of Christian faith. This means to people live their lives according to God's own vision. According to God's own vision. An intention for all people and creation, a vision that includes efforts on behalf of justice, human dignity, and freedom for all. If we know that our vision is for the realization of the reign of God, then we don't need to compete because we are all partakers and participants in the realization of that vision, the realization of the reign of God, that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Well, Walter Brueggemann said that education must attend both to processes of continuity and discontinuity in order to avoid fossilizing into irrelevance on the one hand and relativizing into disappearance on the other. So while we are holding on to the basic, we also need to give space for the new things. That's why we need to have innovative plans and programs for a Christian education. So the continuity and change. And then Maria Harris said that the purpose of Christian education is to fashion the people of God for their pastoral vocation. We are all called to ministry, and the aim of our education is to equip all to respond to this call in whatever shape and form it takes. So where do we educate, or the context? So the context is important. A text without a context is a pretext. So lagi nating sinasabi yan, no? So context refers to the settings, circumstances, and situations within which a particular event or happening occurs. Context is more than just the physical space. It includes attitudes, emotions, relationships, cultural qualities, and many other factors that shape the environment. Actually, one of the great contributions of Methodist leaders in Atisea, and this has been contributed by Bishop Emerito Nakpil because he also served as executive director of Atisea, is the presentation of the critical Asian principles. Of course, we have already revised that, but then the critical Asian principles make Atisea's curriculum different from other theological proposals, no, from other countries. By using the critical Asian principle, we're able to give the uniqueness of the Asian culture to the rest of the world. Although, syempre, from time to time, we need to revisit it also because of the changing landscape. But when you talk about Asia, what makes Asia different from others? There are four characteristics of an Asian continent. And also that we need to all to consider also when we do theologizing, when we do Christian education as our context. So what are these? Of course, the plurality of religion. That's why yesterday, Dr. Ikinya articulated that we need to have interfaith dialogue and interfaith dialogue. By the way, the United Methodist Church is a member of ecumenical bodies like World Council of Churches. And in the Council of Bishops, we even have our own ecumenical officer. So the plurality of religion must be put into consideration, the diversity of culture. We don't have only one culture here. We have diversity of cultures. And then the experience of colonization. And then the reality of poverty. So how do we do our Christian education that is culturally relevant? By the way, I would like also to mention and to highlight that I really appreciated the presentation of all the speakers yesterday. But one thing that I also that I really appreciated is the presentation of Ate Phoebe Gamata Crispo. That our curriculum, especially in our BCED, is not one size fits all. There are criteria that we need to consider. There are five actually. No? It should be biblically based, theologically sound, culturally relevant, age appropriate, and eco-friendly. So what is the context, or where is that place that you will be implementing your Christian education? Your context is very important. Of course, you also know I will not elaborate on this because all of us are Christian educators or educators, so we know already that we have three curricula: the explicit curriculum, the implicit curriculum, and the null curriculum. So when we say explicit curriculum, it refers to what is consciously and intentionally presented as the teachings of the school. So the actual content we are teaching. The implicit curriculum is what a school teaches because of the kind of place it is. The context, the physical characteristics of the school building, the way the day is organized, the emotional environment, the way people relate to each other, and the many other factors teaches important lessons to students, whether we are aware of it or not. By the way, one of our Master of Theology student is now writing her thesis. And her thesis in Christian education is Salakot as the pedagogy of Christian education. So Hazel Salatan said that, well, I would like to use the Salakot for you have visited Union Theological Seminary. That is also one of the unique buildings here at UTS. So our chapel is that of Salakot. So it is round. It's not hierarchical. So it is round. So it's like the legend of the round table. The legend of the round table, that in serving each other we become free. So the place itself is already a curriculum in itself, and we call that implicit curriculum. Yesterday we have this conversation about our dormitories, and I said that we need to inculcate to our students that they should have twin sharing in the rooms. I don't like, well, but because of this pandemic, we could not help but to let them stay in one room, no, by themselves. But then originally we have this twin sharing because that is also part of our curriculum. It is an implicit curriculum that they will be able to learn how to relate with each other. That is part of their pastoral formation. And of course, we have the so-called null curriculum. It refers to what school do not teach. But then Maria Harris said that it is the curriculum that exists because it does not exist. It is what is left out. But the point of including it is that ignorance or the absence of something is not neutral. Okay? So we have all, these are the three curriculum. Of course, we know these things. And then we have the content. What do we need to know? Content is crucial, or is a crucial aspect of the educational ministry of the church. Two significant questions are, what do we need to do? No. So we have the issue-based approach, ito yung life-based approach actually, no? So to be a Christian, one needs to know about life issues and how to relate your faith to them. And we have also the theological discipline approach. One needs to know information about history, tradition, and the theological debates in the church. And then, of course, how do we need to know? And then this is very important for me, the participants. Whom do we educate? The fifth educational building blocks for Christian education invites us to take note of the people we educate. Yesterday, there was this very relevant question. What do we need to do in order to keep our people from leaving the church? That was the question of Pastor John Hiradura. And then, of course, we have many answers. But then, one of the reasons that our people are leaving the church is because sometimes we don't feed them according to their needs. That's why I go back to that criteria given by Ate Phoebe. Our curriculum, our process of education must be also age appropriate. So the father is being fed and being nurtured while his children are not. So he has no choice but to leave the church and to look for a denomination that could both nurture himself and his children. So because of that, I would like to remind us that we have also generational gaps, no? That's why we have the educational age level ministry. Kasi one size does not fit all. Our Christian education must also be age appropriate. Okay, so I have this generation chart. Accordingly, people born in the mid-1940s, actually before 1940s, we call that as silent years. So hindi ko na lang muna siya sinama. Forgive me for that. I will just focus on this generation. No? So we call them as baby boomers. So they were born mid-1940s to early 1960s. Okay. So these baby boomers are sometimes referred to as the mid-generation. They fervently believe they are different from other generations, and this assertion is characterized by both a distrust of older generation as well as an inability to allow younger generations to move to the forefront of civic leadership. As a generation, the baby boomers are enormously successful, no? So, yung ano ng Apple, ng Microsoft, look at them now. They attribute that success to their fundamental uniqueness as a generation. Sometimes, though, they fail to attribute any other achievements to the prosperous post-war years that allow them to access cheap college education and a generally positive job market. So, and then we have these other generations. So we have the Generation X, those who are born from 1965 to 1979, mukhang naandyan kami, no, sa Generation X. And then the Generation Y or the Millennials, we call them the Millennials. Actually, yung Millennials, meron pa yan, Y.1 and Y.2. Pero ilalump natin sila as Generation Y, itong Millennials. And then we have the Generation Z. So these are the people who are born from 1995 to 2010. And then the present generation, we call them as the Generation Alpha, no? From 2011 to the present. So let us look at their different educational age levels. So of course, sa group, yung baby boomers, mga from 55 to 75. And before that, ito yung mga builders or the silent years, as I have said a while ago. For the Generation X, sila yung from 30s to 40s. Generation Y from 20s to early 30s. And Generation C from sila yung mga kids hanggang teens ngayon. When it comes to technology, we also differ from each other. Yung mga baby boomers, sila yung mga typewriter people, the Underwood people. because they were using typewriter during their time. Yung Generation X naman, ito yung VCR, we have already the Walkman. For the Generation Y or for the millennials, they are using, of course, they're very good in internet, email, and SMS. And for the Generation C, sila na yung iPad people, the Facebook people, and the Android people. When it comes to the influencers, the Generation X are being influenced by the practitioners, the Generation Y or the millennials by the experienced peers, the Generation C by user-generated forums. Kaya yung sabi kanina ni Dr. Trixie, don't think that you have the monopoly of knowledge. In the present generation, they could acquire knowledge from different platforms already. So the teacher does not have the monopoly of the knowledge anymore. So yung learning format, ano yung learning format? For the Generation X, spontaneous and interactive. The Generation Y or the millennials, multisensory and visual. Kaya dapat nararamdaman nila, hindi pwedeng lecture ka ng lecture, tutulugan ka nila. No? Multisensory and visual. And then Generation C, ito na yon, student-centric and kinesthetic, kayong online. They have the so-called asynchronous learning. Not only synchronous, but asynchronous learning. So student-centric, you put the materials there, they will be able to learn. Normal sa kanila yan. Lecture ka ng lecture, tutulugan kanila. So when it comes to learning environment, yung Generation X, katulad ng mga generations namin ay round table, style relaxed ambience. For the millennials, cafe style with music and multimodal. Kaya yung, ano nga ba yung Starbucks, nako, patok na patok, especially for the millennial. It's there that they are doing their assignments, no? Kasi cafe style with music and multimodal, so different moods. For the Generation C, ito na yung lunchroom style and multi-stimulus. No? So multi-stimulus na. And then, when it comes to financial values, so medium-term goals and credit savvy ang Generation X, ang Generation Y naman ay short-term ones, credit dependent. Kaya marami sa kanila ay meron ng mga credit cards. And for the Generation C, ito, impulse purchases and e-stores. Kaya merong Shopee and Lazada. And then meron ng online purchases. Dito sa UTS, maya-maya meron ng package. Kasi nag-online purchase na pala sa Shopee si Ma'am Hazel or si Ma'am Kakay, no? So, and then the training focus. So, what are the differences? For the Generation X, practical, case studies, and applications. For the Generation Y, emotional, stories, and participative. But for the Generation C, multimodal, it must be different modes, e-learning and interactive. That's why, again, if you have been listening to the presentation of Dr. Ikinya, even our presentation of Christian education is already multidisciplinary. So what is the biblical perspective about that, philosophical and other things, no, from different disciplines? And then, of course, the ideal leaders. So you can see there for the Generation X, co-coordinating doers, empowering collaborators, and inspiring co-creators. So it means that in order for us to respond to the need of our people, we need also to be we need also to consider their generation. What are their needs, especially in each generation? And of course, as I said, we have now the Generation Alpha, born between 2011 and the present. So Business Insider and McCrindle report that 2.5 million alphas are born around the globe every week. And these kids will be the most entwined with digital technology than any before. They'll grow up using technology as part of their daily routine, inherently incorporating it into every part of their lives. Normal sa kanila ang gadget kasi yan na yung kanilang language. I smiled when one of our senior professors said that I have a hard time using all these gadgets. And then he was not able to fix his cell phone. So he requested his apo to fix his cell phone for him. So sabi niya, Connie, alam mo, after 1 minute, tapos na, alam na ni Mimi. Sabi ko sa kanya, kasi po, language nila yan. No? So si Dr. Fernandez, if he could not understand his cell phone, he would ask a child to help him with that. No? So yung mga bata, yung nagtuturo especially sa online thing. Okay, because that is already their world, that is their habitat, that is already their language. So sa Christian education, one size does not fit all. No? Our approach must also be age appropriate. And then I would like also to have a glimpse, no, of the different developmental theories. No? Kasi yung ating Christian education saw that it will be appropriate to our parishioners. We should also be reminded of these different developmental theories. Pero I will not deal in details with this, no? Yung mabilisan lang. Ito si John Piaget. Kung nandito ba si Ma'am Lilibeth Bolado, the first time that I heard about John Piaget was when I was a student at Harris Memorial College. Siya po yung teacher ko. Si John Piaget at Eric Erikson, no? So later. So si John Piaget sa cognitive development theory, of course, meron siyang stages of growth. Kaya dapat, sabi ni Ate Phoebe, age appropriate, no? Kasi yung lesson, hindi yan pwede sa lahat, no? So yung first stage, of course, you have the sensory motor stage, physical observation. Ages 2 to 7, the pre-operational stage, language and fantasy, creative imagination. And then from 7 to 11 years, the concrete operational stage. These children will now have capacity to use mental logic, but is limited to situations that are real and observable. And then from 12 and above, the formal operation stage. So they have the capacity of making sense of the world through abstract thinking. Growth is promoted through interaction. So hindi pa muna yung mga abstract thinking doon sa 7 years old and below. They could not understand it yet, no? Pero na lang kung genius. Okay, or advanced rather. And then the next theory is on the psychosocial development theory. Ito yung sa kay Eric Erikson, no? So trust versus mistrust, sa infant, alam niyo yung details niyan. Autonomy versus shame and doubts sa early childhood. Kaya siguro, yung sabi nga natin, ang venue talaga ng Christian education ay mag-start sa home. At ang role ng parents is very important, no? So autonomy versus shame and doubt. I remember my sister Framer, nandun siya sa stage na yan, autonomy. Gusto niya magluto, nagluto siya. Ang problema, nasunog, natutong. So takot na takot siya kasi baka papagalitan siya ng daddy namin. Can you imagine kung halimbawa ang approach ng daddy ay hindi maganda, ang mabubuo sa kanya ay shame and doubt. Pero ang ginawa ng daddy namin, sabi ng daddy, wow, ang sarap-sarap ng luto ng anak ko. Ang galing mo na magluto. Pero sa susunod anak, dahan-dahan lang ang apoy para hindi masunog kasi mas masarap yung hindi tutong. So, yung positive reinforcement ng daddy namin, it helped her to be confident na, I can do this thing. Hindi naman pala nakakatakot na magkamali kasi pwede naman hindi naman siya mali, dahan-dahan na lang. No? So, yun, very important. Initiative versus guilt sa preschool years yan, so very important. Industry versus inferiority, school age. I remember this industry. Kasi pagdating sa bahay, ayoko maghugas ng pinggan. Kailangan ko maghugas ng pinggan dahil ako ang bunso. So, mukhang dapat baguhin na rin yun, ano? So, ginawa ko, hugas ako ng pinggan, binagsak ko yung iba. Aba, merong na anong tawag dito, merong nabasag. So actually, pagdating doon sa moral development, ito yung reward versus punishment. Nandiyan yan eh. So takot ako, baka i-punish ako. Again, ang daddy kasi namin, hindi yung nagagalit na meron yung due process at saka meron yung positive reinforcement. Sabi niya sa akin, wow, ang galing ng anak ko, napakasipag. Pero anak, sa susunod, dahan-dahan lang ha, para walang mabasag. Kasi pag nabasag mo yung pinggan, yung pambili natin ng pinggan, ay yung pambili natin ng candies mo, ng merienda mo, pambili na lang natin ng pinggan. So, dahan-dahan sa susunod, mas maganda pag walang basag. Titingnan ko yan sa susunod. So, na-develop sa akin na yung dignity of labor and at the same time yung appreciation. At ang sabi niya pa, pag ikaw naghugas ng pinggan, your mommy will not do that anymore. So, you're able to help your mommy also. So dahil mahal ko ang mami ko, tutulungan ko siya. So na-develop din sa akin yon. So very important yan sa Christian education, not only in the church setting, but especially in the home setting. And then of course, during adolescence, we have identity versus role confusion. Intimacy versus isolation sa young adults, generativity versus stagnation sa middle adulthood, and ego integrity versus despair sa older adulthood. Okay, meron daw mga fears ang bawat generation, no? So sabi, the greatest fear of children is abandonment. Kaya kahit paluin ng nanay, sasama at sasama yan. Kasi that's their greatest fear. Huwag mong paluin. I-assure mo siya na babalik ka. I-assure mo siya hindi mo siya iiwan. The greatest fear of young people is rejection. Kaya they need to belong, kaya yung peer pressure ay napakalakas, no? The greatest fear of adults is failure. Kasi ito na yung dapat stable na sa career, yung career development. And then the greatest fear of old people is worthlessness. Sasabihin nila, pabigat naman ako eh. So sasabihin ni Ma'am Hazel, nandito kasi si Ma'am Hazel, kaya siya yung aking ginagamit example. Mami, wag ka na magtrabaho, i-maslide ka pa mamaya. So hindi talaga, magwawalis talaga yan. No? So sabihin mo na, ano ba naman yan? Kasi the greatest fear of old people, especially the matured people na lang kasi wag the old people, ay worthlessness. So doon sa ating Christian education, especially sa elderly, sa senior citizen, ano yung programs that they would feel that they are still relevant? No? Sa ating young people, what are the programs that they would feel that they belong para hindi kayo iiwanan ng inyong parishioners? Especially sa children, what are the programs that we can give so that they will feel assurance, no? And then confidence that they will not be left out, that they will not be abandoned. Okay, and of course, bilisan ko lang ng konti kasi I have only actually 45 minutes. It was given to me na time ko. So yung sa kay Lawrence Kohlberg naman, ito yung moral development. So sa mga bata, itong pre-conventional moral reasoning involves what is right and what is wrong. And then sa level 2, look the important persons as the source of moral authority. Rules and laws are followed. And then sa level 3, post-conventional, although some adults have been stuck up on level 2. Principles are at the heart of level 3 moral reasoning. Realization that specific laws or guidelines are sometimes not enough to guide moral decision making. Just laws are specific expression of moral principles, and just laws need to be changed and value the procedure that make change possible. And human life is sacred, and all persons must be respected as having worth. Do you remember yung sagot ni Jesus dun sa mga Pharisees na sinabi na, why are you treating these people during Sabbath? Nandun siya sa post-conventional. Sabi, unjust laws need to be changed. Anong sabi niya? Sabbath are made for people, not people are made for Sabbath. So may mga laws na we could also challenge kasi they are not absolute. Kaya tuwan-tuwa ako sa Ate Sea, yung revised critical Asian principle, it is actually questioning the monopoly of expertise of the Western theologians. Kaya sabi ng sadali, people in Asia could also think, we could also do our own contextual theologizing. No? So we break new grounds by challenging current values so that people will be able to see reality from another perspective. Sa ating mga sa ating parishioners, people who are already in the post-conventional level, ayun din yung approach natin. So titingnan bakit yung laws ba yan ay pwede? Hindi ba pwede silang pasunurin lang na hindi nila alam ang why and what and how. So that is very important. No? And then, dito din sa, so pupunta tayo sa next theory. Ito yung faith development theory ni James Fowler. So of course, the primal faith sa infancy, hindi ko nababasahin yan. And then stage 1, intuitive, projective faith. Stage 2, mythic literal stage, ito yung childhood and beyond. Stage 3, synthetic conventional faith, adolescence and beyond. Stage 4, individuative reflective faith, ito yung sa young adult. Meron naman siya, no? And then stage 6, universalizing faith. Again, yung presentation yesterday, bakit tayo merong interfaith dialogue? Bakit tayo merong interfaith dialogue? Bakit very important yung ecumenical openness? Why are we, most of us here, our churches are members of World Council of Churches. Nandun tayo sa stage na universalizing faith that we believe that we don't have the monopoly of God's grace and revelation. Because God is sovereign, God could reveal God's self to various ways and means to various group of people. No? So kaya may mga ecumenical openness na very important siya. And we know that God could reveal God's self in various ways and means. Kaya mga interfaith dialogue is very important. I believe that God also revealed God's self to people from other faith affirmations, and we could learn from them. Kaya actually, ang United Methodist Church, again, I am a United Methodist pastor, so I'll be using the United Methodist Church as my point of reference. We have the General Commission on Unity and Interreligious Affairs. That is one of the general commissions of the United Methodist Church, where we look for venues for dialogues with the Muslims, with the Jewish people, with the Buddhists, with other faith religions, no faith affirmations. Okay. And by the way, natuwa din ako kasi sa conversation ko with President Flor Miranda, meron silang student na Muslim. Kailangan niya mag-pray kasi 5 times sila mag-pray. They provided a space for that person so that he could do his prayers every day. Okay. And then, very important also, before I will go to process and method, is your demographic survey. Now, ito din, not only for the Christian educators, but for the pastors. My father served as district superintendent for many years. And then, one pastor came to him and he said, DS, wala talaga ako makuha membro na 25 lang talaga. So sabi ng daddy ko, okay, 25 lang talaga. 25 lang talaga. Ginawa ko na ang lahat. Sabi lang ng daddy ko, how many people do you have in that municipality? Tahimik siya. Actually, you have 250,000 people. How many churches or institutional churches have been established in that community? Tahimik siya, hindi niya rin alam. There are 2, yung Roman Catholic Church at saka isang Iglesia ni Cristo. So what are the work of the people or the livelihood of the people in your community? Hindi niya rin alam. So sabi ni Daddy, yung iba sa kanila ay teachers kasi may mga schools dyan. So how many active parishioners go to these established churches in your community? So hindi niya rin alam. Actually, sabi ni Daddy, around 50,000 siguro din sa Roman Catholic, pero masyadong malaki na nga yun At doon sa isang church around mga siguro sabi natin 20,000. You have 250 people in that community. So sana punta yung more than yung 100,000 plus. Diba? So sasabihin mo wala talaga. Ang point is part of our being educators is to know our people. Saan sila? Ilan sila? Ano ginagawa nila doon? No? So, very important yan even for the pastors. Okay. At saka yung daddy ko, meron siyang map. Sabi ko sa daddy ko, why do you have that map, Dad? So sa map niya, merong bahay ng mga members, merong landmark. So dilalagyan niya ng landmark. Sabi ko, bakit naka-landmark? So sabi niya, kasi ito yung bahay na nabisita ko na. So alam niya saan yung bahay ng mga members niya. At alam niya kailan bibisitahin. No? Pero syempre ngayong pandemic, mukhang mag-innovate tayo ng content dyan. Pero very important yun. You must know your people. What are their needs? Kapag alam mo yun, you could respond appropriately at hindi ka iiwan. Bakit? Nafe-feel nila, nafe-feed sila. Alam mo ang pangangailangan nila at alam mo ang talents nila so that they could also contribute to the growth of the church. Because again, Christian education is not only for the teachers, not only for the church workers, it is the work of the whole congregation. We believe in the priesthood of all believers. So that's very important, no? From womb to tomb, every day, every minute. Okay, so let us put into consideration these things. And then process and method. So how do we educate? How do we educate? Again, one size does not fit all. So it depends on the context. Kapag rural area siya or urban area, urban setting, magkaiba din sila. Kung ano yung work ng mga tao, livelihood ng mga tao, iba din. Tingnan niyo si Jesus, matalino talaga si Jesus eh. Yung process niya, yung methods niya. Kapag mga farmers, yung parable of the farmer. Why? Because people could relate to that. Pero pagdating dun sa mga Sanhedrin, question and answer, dire-diretso. No? Kasi yun yung level nila. And then kapag mga bata, itatouch niya, ihahag niya. Kasi kinesthetic ang mga bata. And they learn from him. So, iba't ibang process and methods depending on the context, the participants, and the purpose. No? So while method refers to those specific activities and techniques that we use to carry out the process. So these are the 6 areas. So and then, okay, so the process and methods do not educate or teach people though. Okay, gusto ko yung online learning kasi we have also, of course, challenges with this new normal. But I don't like to use new normal. I would like to say we are in a situation that we are forging new path, no, for educational opportunities. So we are forging new path. Okay. So sabi dun, online learning, okay, learning is not on the online. So what is important in the online learning is not the online but the learning. So yung online is just a delivery system. Ang importante ay yung learning. Okay, so meron kaming 15 do's and don'ts. What you can do, especially if you could not access the internet, kasi yun din yung challenges, especially here at UTS. So yun, very important. The process and methods do not educate or teach, people do. The process we choose and the methods we use are simply tools to teach us, teach, and learn. So the process and methods are shaped by the context within which they are used. The process and methods should be consistent with the purpose toward which we educate. Sa mga teachers, alam niyo yan, kaya yung syllabus, very important, no? Ano yung learning objective, ano yung process. So, hindi ko na isa-isahin kasi lahat dito, kung hindi man lahat, most are educators. Now, okay, I have only a few minutes, so I will focus on this. How do we innovate our programs and plans? I would like to highlight and to underscore that we need to put into serious consideration the 6 basic areas. What are these again? The concept, the purpose, the context, the content, the participants, and the process and method. Because what is innovative or innovated to some context may be basic to others. And what may be basic for others is already an innovation to many. Example, the use of Zoom. That is already an innovation for the baby boomers and for the Generation X. But for Generation C and the millennials, that is very basic. Kaya natatawa ako kapag medyo hirap kami. Nandito si Ma'am Hazel sa tabi ko kasi sabi ko, I don't know how to share screen. Pagpapracticean ko pa. Pero sa kanya normal kasi basic sa kanya, millennial siya eh. No? So again, what is innovative to some context may be basic to others. And what may be basic for others is already an innovation to many. So I will be giving some suggestions, no? Kasi ibibigay ni Dr. Dick mamaya the rest of other suggestions. So I will be focusing on this and then I will be ending up my presentation. So, two areas lang, so worship or devotion at saka sa education. So sa worship and devotion, we have this so-called, especially in this time of pandemic, no, develop the power of presence. That is very important. Okay, ano yung power of presence? Kasama dito yung hingalangin or breath prayer. Every breath is a prayer. Yun yung sinasabi ni Jesus na pray without ceasing. Hindi yung, okay, hindi mo na ako magtuturo, magpipray muna ako. Hindi yun. Kundi it is mindfulness that every breath that we take is already a prayer. So, hingalangin. And then, ito yung develop the presence of power. Sabi ni Cynthia Andrews, go within. Gawin po natin to, especially ngayong nagpapanik tayo sa pandemic. At hindi tayo dapat nagpapanik sa pandemic. Develop the power of presence. Presence is the canvas that conveys your essence to the world. It communicates the turmoil or serenity of your thoughts, the turbulence or coherence of your emotions, and the conviction of your truth. It reflects how you process, integrate, and use life force. Presence carries the force of your spirit to interact with the whole of reality. Developing presence is a process of developing awareness. Every breath is a prayer. Relax, relax. The answer is just there. Relax. And then be mindful that by breathing, you are also connecting to the source of life, to yung ruwak, no? The breath of God. Okay? So the second one, spend time and learn from nature. Ayan. So dito kasi sa UTS, we have the so-called geotheology class. So, very part siya ng core values at saka part siya ng core course namin, no? Kaya meron kaming hugging the tree. And this morning, I just read, anong tawag dito, a message from Southern Philippines Methodist Colleges. Sabi ng isang professor, hi, all of my energies have been drained kasi meron siyang series of counseling. Sabi niya, mabuti na lang maraming greens dito sa SPMCI. Lalabas lang ako, I'm being recharged. Totoo yan. Ito ay basic, especially sa mga people sa rural areas. But for the people in the urban area, is already an innovation for you to hug a tree. Hindi pa nila ginagawa yan. Yan. But try nyo yan. You hug a tree. No? And it is actually, kaya yun, again, uulitin ko yung sinabi ni Ate Phoebe, eco-friendly. Ito, part to ng eco-friendly na criteria, no? Ng ating curriculum, yung nature. And then, use of labyrinth, cairn, Bible garden, and meditation places and materials. Yung cairn, nakita nyo yon, yung mga stones na ibabalance-balance nyo. Well, it will take you concentration. And siguro yung concentration and really discipline before mo mababalance yung bawat stone na yan. At maya-maya pag nagawa mo yan, nakaka-relax ka rin. And then we have this labyrinth, no? Hindi siya maze kasi yung maze wala siyang palabas. Itong labyrinth, one of the meditational tools na ginagawa natin, we have here sa UTS, thanks to Ma'am Marlu Scott, no? At ibang sponsors. So ginagawa namin, hindi na yung, okay, may devotion tayo, opening song, opening prayer, homily, opening, closing song, closing prayer. Bukas yun na naman paulit-ulit. Wala na, sometimes we let them go to the labyrinth and do their meditational walk. So habang nag-walk sila, nag-take a breath sila, and they are also meditating. At paglabas nila, no, go to the inner side, and then paglabas nila, sasabihin nila, wow, mukhang na-refresh ako. Wow, I already know the answer to my questions. So, may mga ganun tayo. And then yung Bible garden, ito pa yung challenge. Actually, we have been challenged by Mount Framer during one of our convocations here at UTS kasi we have vast area of land. Sabi niya, bakit hindi kayo magkaroon ng Bible garden? Ano yung Bible garden? Meron kayong stations. So every book, kasi meron tayong 66 books, no? Especially sa Protestant Bible. So you don't need to lecture, okay, ang Genesis ay ganito, ang Exodus ay ganito. That's too boring. Pwede na yung participant could go to a certain station sa the Genesis section. Ang motif niya ay creation account or yung makikita doon sa Genesis, and then meron na siya, mababasa mo na. And then punta siya sa next station, Exodus station. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, hanggang sa maikot niya yung 66 books. And then, experiential siya para sa kanila. Sabi ko, wow, gusto ko yan. Hindi pa namin nagagawa. Hopefully, we will be able to do that. We'll be able to put up a Bible garden so that people could have the retreat and at the same time learn about the Bible, about Christian education through their own. No? So, yan. And then, worship through music. Nako, ginagawa yan ng mga deaconesses, especially sa Harris Memorial College. No? We have your worship through music, worship through creative movements, even our advocacies. No? Kasi part siya eh. Pag sinabi yung spirituality is the wholeness of life, your prophetic boldness is part of your spirituality. That's why you have prophetic boldness, because that is your spirituality. So the use of songs and poetries. Last year, our students were able to publish their 111th collection of books of songs and poetries. So meron po kami dito sa library. Sinulat po yun ng ating mga students dito sa UTS. And then, finally, pagdating sa education, no? So ito na yon. Hindi ko alam kung paano natin gagawin, pero tulad ng sinabi ni Dr. Miranda, sa ating MySen Methodist International Students Exchange Network under the General Board of Higher Education and Ministry, we are planning to have yung exchange program pero virtual. Hopefully, we'll be able to pilot that here sa UTS. So yung ecumenical immersion program, ginawa po namin ito. Our students went to Mindanao. No? Meron silang immersion program sa Tri-People. Our partner was Southern Philippines Methodist Colleges. Kasi sa Mindanao, hindi puro Christians doon. We have our Lumad people or the indigenous communities. We have also the Muslim brothers and sisters, and we have the Christian settlers. So for a week, doon sila, yung seminarista natin ay doon sila sa mga areas na ito. And it was really life-affirming for them at saka transformative. Kasi sabi ng isang student natin, it was my first time not only to see a Muslim person, but to live in a Muslim home. Can you imagine that? It was also the first time for that Muslim family to host a Christian person and a seminarian. So, meron po kaming book. Ito yung DVCS. Ang mga bishops po natin, may kopya po niyan. Yun po yung reflection ng kanilang ng kanilang experience doon. And then sa Lumad communities. And then doon sa Christian settlers. So, pwede po siyang innovative. No? So, go beyond the four corners of the classroom. Wala na yun, hindi naman wala na yun. Importante pa rin siya. And then cultural exchange. So under the Foundation for Theological Education in Southeast Asia, or FTSEA, we have this partnership with Yushan Theological Seminary for 3 years. So our Master of Theology students, meron sa exchange program with the students there sa Yushan. So for 3 weeks, nandito sila to learn about the culture of the Filipino people. So dinadala namin, hindi namin kwento si Jose Rizal, dinadala namin sa Luneta at saka sa Calamba para makita nila mismo. And at the same time, our students have also gained cultural insights, no, from there. So again, pwedeng siguro natin gawin yan sa virtual through MySen. No? And then ito, very important, yung collaborative research and workshops among Christian educators and seminaries. Okay, the reason why we have Atisea, the reason why we have PAMSCUS, and PAMSCUS is the Philippine Association of Methodist Schools, Colleges, Universities, and Seminaries, and we have the APAME, Asia Pacific Association of Methodist-Related Educational Institutions, and IAMSCO, is because we believe that we need to help each other in order to do the teaching ministry of Jesus Christ. Dito po ako matatapos, huwag kayong mag-alala. So, dito sa collaborative research and workshop, pwede po natin gawin yan. No? Christian educators from Davao Episcopal area, pero ginagawa na yun actually ng ating BCED. No? Siguro ng ating seminaries. 2 years ago, we have this program again from FTSEA, and we invited in seminarians from different seminaries. Merong isa from Silliman University, Silliman University 2 years ago, and then students from Southern SPTS, St. Paul Theological Seminary ng IFI, at saka yung ACTS, Aglipay Central Theological Seminary. Meron silang field work. And then sa ating mga, of course, yung friendship game with Wesley Divinity School, Divine Word Seminary, and other seminaries nearby. So itong collaborative research, pwede po natin gawin sa ating ATISEA, at ginagawa na po yan ng ATISEA, ng ating PAM schools, ng ating APAME, at ng ating IAMSCO. Marami pa po, pero si Dr. Dick na po ang magbibigay ng the rest of the innovative programs. Thank you very much.
Big thanks to you, Dr. Connie, for sharing this very informative lecture. We were indeed refreshed on the various developmental theories significant to our learners of today's generation. Thank you also for the timely suggestions that you have shared to us. So kindly keep all your questions, and we'll be asking our lecturers later after all of them were through with their lectures. So our last but definitely not the least lecturer for this morning is the Academic Dean of the Asia Pacific Nazarene Theological Seminary located in Rizal. He currently serves as Discipleship Coordinator for the Philippine Micronesia field of the Church of the Nazarene. He finished his PhD from the University of Manchester in 2011 and has published 3 books. First, Communion with the Triune God in 2014, The Gift of Life in 2019, and The Christian Life in 2019 as well. Along with several articles and book chapters, he is married to Mary Ann, and they have 2 children, Heloise, 9, and Jed, 4. Let us all welcome Dr. Dick O. Eugenio.
Thank you po. Introduction. It is my privilege and joy to be able to share with you this morning. I would like to affirm what my fellow presenters said before I do my presentation on innovation by Dr. Miranda. That's very, very important insight. Einstein was said to have said that the definition of insanity is to keep on doing the same thing and expecting a different result. We really have to innovate. We have to have a creative imagination as we pursue Christian education in the future and even for the present. And of course, Dr. Connie, thank you for your affirmation of the age level distinction in learning. At APNTS, every year I ask our registrar to send me a report on the average age of students. And the response is that right now, our average age is actually 34.5, which means that most of our students are actually millennials. And that affects how we, of course, do our classes and other things. My presentation this morning will be very, very narrow. I would like to do some creative thinking and innovative proposals on one specific aspect of Christian education instead of doing a more general thinking about Christian education. Of course, I could have talked about Christian formation, which is one of the things that I am very, very keen on doing as well. I'm very interested in that, in discipleship. I am very interested in discipleship. But I think for Christian education, one of the things that has been challenged greatly by the pandemic is practicum. And we have no choice but to engage in discussion about how we might rethink practicum or field education or internship or on-the-job training, however you want to define it or name it. So again, this presentation is very, very narrow, and don't worry, I won't take 45 minutes. I plan to be done in 20 minutes. Let me begin my presentation now. Unexpected challenges during the pandemic, CHED and government restrictions. We have all experienced that on many things like face-to-face education. Campus is closed, library is closed. the inaccessibility of practicum sites because of quarantine measures, which means that we've struggled here at APNTS last semester about this. When practicum sites are no longer available, and therefore our students cannot go and do their ministries. Of course, students' lack of skill sets for the new reality. Uh, the, the, the sobering reality is that seminary education, at least, has not prepared them with skill sets during a pandemic or during a lockdown. We do not have in our curriculum digital proficiency or digital literacy or employing Zoom and the like in our educating our ministers. Syllabus intended outcomes cannot be met off-site and online because syllabus were written in January and pandemic started in March. And so the outcomes that are indicated in the syllabus did not consider even remotely the possibility of a lockdown and therefore inaccessibility of practicum sites and all these challenges. And of course, the school's lack of tools to assess offsite and online engagements. We are so pampered by face-to-face interaction and transportation and travel that we have completely neglected all of these things, at least for APNTS, because we do not have a robust online education before the pandemic. The result of all of these challenges is stress, not only for the faculty, especially for the academic dean. Hey, academic deans, say hi. Stress for us how to navigate through these issues for the faculty, for the students as well. Stress plus ulcer. And so I hope everybody, faculty and academic deans, academicians and faculty, I hope you don't have ulcer, or at least you have overcome this before. And so what to do? Well, I have heard several proposals about this. The first response is this: my goodness, just ask the students to have creative imagination. And so the problem is that we put the burden on the students to be creative, to be imaginative on how they can engage practicum during the lockdown or offsite or online. And that's quite unfair, really, that we put a significant burden on our students. Of course, the second one is just give students a passing grade. Problem with this is that when students or graduates apply for work, institutions will ask, what year did you graduate? They will say, 2020 graduate. Okay, you will need to attend a seminar first before you are hired by our company because you are a COVID graduate, or you will attend a bridge program in order to fulfill some expectations that I'm sure your school have made easier during the pandemic. And so we don't want any of these to happen again. So what to do? Well, the pandemic must lead us to reimagine our practicum expectations, or practicum protocols, or practicum procedures, even assessment and evaluation. So some questions for consideration. By the way, this presentation has more questions than affirmations. So this is more of a innovating together, not an expert telling everybody what to do, but I invite you to think with me on how we can make our practicum better. First question, should practicum be treated as a 3-unit course in the curriculum in which students enroll in one semester and get finished? The pandemic has highlighted the fact that if we have practicum as a 3-unit course that the students enroll in one semester, when unexpected circumstances happen, the entire 3-unit course is in jeopardy. And so we have students last semester, who experienced precisely this problem. Of course, the same question must be posed for Christian formation. Is it appropriate for Christian formation to be treated as a 3-unit course that students enroll and finish in one semester? Does that express a robust understanding of practicum and Christian formation? Second question, should practicum be treated as a culminating summative course in the curriculum? Meaning to say, is practicum something that students should do only when they have finished all or most of their classes in the curriculum, so that the practicum is seen as the output of all the learnings they have done throughout their education at the school? And so here we have a discussion or questions on theory and practice. Should everybody learn all theories first before they implement something to practice? What's the ratio or flow between input and output? Should the students receive all input first before they engage in output? Or should they have output while they are receiving input? So should practicum be a culminating summative course in the curriculum, or should it be treated as something that students should do and perform throughout their curriculum, so that output is available for them as they receive theories and other cognitive information? What is the primary emphasis of practicum? Is it supervision or engagement? This is a philosophy of practicum question. Especially at the master's level, APNTS offers mostly graduate programs and postgraduate programs. Is practicum at the graduate level more on emphasizing the number of hours of student engagement, or is it more on the supervision? Mind you, that graduate students are already involved in the ministry. They are, to a certain degree, already mature. And so is it appropriate that practicum emphasizes the number of hours instead of reflective engagement? So should we emphasize, so during the pandemic, should we emphasize more hours on doing things? Or should we actually emphasize the moment, the act of reflecting on what they have done? After all, the practicum is an academic class. It's supposed to be a learning class. So, is the emphasis on the ministry itself, or on the supervision that the school has and the engagement of the local church or the practicum side? What is the role of the field supervisor, mentor, and the practicum side? This is another question, because one of the problems during the pandemic on practicum was this: is practicum the sole responsibility of the professor teaching the practicum or the director of the supervised practicum? Or is it a shared responsibility between the educational institution, educational provider, and the district or the local church? So that the expectation or the thinking together of what comprises practicum belongs both to the educational provider and the church, which means that what is the church doing during the pandemic? And then the supervisor expects the students to perform this and that based on the need of the local site. So here we have dynamic discipleship instead of only the educational institution providing the intended outcomes and competencies. How much flexibility is allowed by the institution, by the educational provider, in order to accommodate the current or sudden expectations of the practicum side and the supervisor? How can students master their specialization or concentration through practicum? Is it through cognitive progression, or is it through informed praxis? Meaning to say, if practicum is part of the specialization in the curriculum or concentration in the curriculum, What do they actually learn in the practicum? What do they actually engage during the practicum? Is it just is the practicum just an output, or is it part of the maturation of learning, cognitive learning that students experience? What skill sets should students acquire to be work competent? Another problem during the pandemic is this: how do we enable or train or equip our students to be work competent when they cannot be in the work site? Does that mean that we do not only focus on workplace skills, but we actually need to engage our students in digital proficiency? Should that be a part of our curriculum now as well? How can practicum maximize student learning diversity? Gordon Smith, president of Ambrose University right now, has once said that millennials, if below 30 years old, students or people in general are in an exploration stage in life. They have not really fixed their employment on something. In fact, according to him, people usually under 30 go from one job to another because they are exploring. They are still trying to see which one do they like. And so in practicum, do we allow this? And how can we allow that if it is only a one semester thing? Do we have flexible assessments? Do we have flexibility in terms of student learning diversity and preferences? What if a student learns more by reading? What is the practicum? What if they don't thrive in a crowd environment? How do we engage them in practicum? How can practicum be integrated with Christian formation? How do we bridge the apparent divide between piety and practice? How can practice be integrated with piety? My first sermon was when I was 16 years old, and I am very sure that my audience, my listeners, thought that my sermon was really bad. But I continued to preach because nobody told me that my sermon is bad. But I'm sure it was really not nice. Okay. But because I continue to serve, I continue to mature, and I continue to develop my skills. I continue to reflect, etc., etc. So how do we implement that as well in our Christian education? How do we make sure that students are engaged in practice and at the same time maturing in their Christian formation? Basically, how can practicum be formative and transformative instead of just being praxis? How can practicum develop a missional mindset in students so that the practicum is not just a 3-unit class that they need to finish, tick off the checklist of classes that needed to finish? So how do we inculcate a theology of vocation and the work of the kingdom in practicum engagements of students? So here are my proposals for consideration. I think practicum needs to highlight and emphasize reflective engagement. That we do not just ask students to engage, but devote a significant amount to encourage or even compel or force students to engage in reflection. Karl Rahner, Roman Catholic theologian, once said that reflection and ministry go hand in hand. You cannot do ministry without reflection, and you cannot reflect without engaging in ministry. So how do we have both in practicum? What assessment methods should we employ? Mentoring relationship. The highlight of this is that The formation and transformation of students is not the sole responsibility of the educational provider, but it is also a partnership with the church, with the denomination, especially for those of us who are teaching in a denominational school. How do we involve our pastors in the formation of our students? The best way is practicum by adding mentoring relationships. Degree length practicum, and this is what I want to do for APNTS next academic year. That practicum is not a one semester thing, but a degree length practicum that they should do at the beginning of the second semester of the student's enrollment, so that students have output for the input they are receiving in class. And so what I hope to do is that students will have a checklist of competencies based on the objectives and outcomes, intended outcomes of the degree program. And this list of competencies, or we can call them ministry functions or education functions, and these competencies and checklist will be related to a particular class they are taking during the semester they are enrolled. So let's say, for example, for a Master of Divinity student, let's say leadership, or let's say I don't know, leading a church board meeting. Students will check that competency or perform that competency when they enroll in a class called church administration. So while they are being enrolled in that particular class, they are looking at specific competencies as an output of the input they are learning in class. This way, students are not in a hurry to finish all 40 competencies in one semester. I think that is unrealistic expectation for any student. Ladderized expectations. What do we expect for students on their first year as competencies? How do we enable them to do that in their practicum? What do we expect students? Well, what do we expect from students in terms of competencies in their second year or in their final year? So we have a ladderized expectation of what it means for a student to be a graduating senior. What skills and competencies does this student already possess at this point? Holistic integration with formation. The sad reality is we have chapel services and other spiritual activities on campus, but they are not related to our academic purposes. They are considered as non-academic extracurricular activities. So how do we integrate practicum with formation? And again, my proposal is this. A student, let me stand up. And this is my bias, okay? You can crucify me for this. There is no genuine transformation or maturity without actual engagement in ministry. I do not believe, and I'm not convinced at all, that a student can be equipped to be excellent in Christ-like ministries apart from being continuously engaged all throughout his life as a student in ministry. That's my bias, because that is my experience. There has never been a point in time in which I have not been involved in Christian ministry while I am a student. And that has proven to be very effective in my formation as a Christian. Because for me, Christian formation is not just a spiritual, ethereal, mystical formation. It is Christian formation that includes ministry, not just piety. And of course, finally, I think we need to have our students create a portfolio in which they detail their engagement throughout their years uh, in education, so that at the end of the day they can gather all these things and show wherever they are applying all the things that they have done, the competencies that they have accomplished, the things that the seminary or the educational institution is really inculcating among our students. Thank you very much. That ends my presentation. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eugenio, for sharing valuable insights to all of us, which were truly beneficial. At this juncture, let me remind all the participants, even those who watched yesterday via Facebook Live and today via YouTube Live, to register in order to get your certificates. Just a trivia, do you know that we have 1,500 views yesterday via Facebook Live? It is quite amazing, isn't it? That is how God works. Make sure that you register, please, for you to get your certificates. We'll post the registration link once again for you to accomplish it. I believe that you have been blessed with all the lectures given to us by our esteemed speakers. We shall now proceed with the open forum. You may write your questions in the chat box and kindly address them specifically to our lecturers, I mean. Okay, this came from Dr. Falier. I think this is directed to our to Dr. Melia. So, where do we start this so-called innovation? Concept, context, or environment, curriculum, methods, approaches, strategies, goals, objectives, and how far can we do this innovation? Is this is the limit? That's a question, Dr. Melia.
I think Bishop Torio has already answered the question. No? I'm looking at his answer. We must see innovation as integral and holistic.
Okay.
Okay, as I said before, in Christian education, there is this continuity and change. How far can we innovate? We can innovate as far as we are being true to our mission and vision. Okay? But don't ever forget your vision and mission. Why are you doing this? What is this for? So what is what is our vision? Why are we are doing Christian education? Again, for the realization of the reign of God. What is our mission? Again, I'm speaking as a United Methodist, to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. So the innovations are just processes in order for us to be equipped in our mission so that we'll be able to realize that vision. So as far you can innovate, but don't ever forget what is your vision and mission. You are true to who you are.
Thank you, Dr. Melia. This is for Dr. Eugenio. So ministry is a broad term. Could you please elaborate on the term ministry? Could you please elaborate the ministry in your terms?
Thank you very much, Ms. Kilibe, for the question. Ministry involves many things like uh, Sunday school teaching. It can be a small group ministry. It can be involvement in the church, local church. It can be involvement in the school teaching ministry. So it's yes, as you have said, it is used broadly. And so in practicum, our students, we have practicum in teaching, we have practicum in local church management, we have practicum in ministry, we have practicum in administration, etc., etc. So all of these things are part of the ministry, or as long as it is the work of the kingdom, whether it is in the church or outside the church, performed inside the church or outside the church, we consider them as ministry.
Thank you, Doc Eugenio. I think this is another question directed to Dr. Melia. How can we create age-appropriate modules?
I think that question will be referred to the Board of Christian Education and Christian Education under Ate Phoebe Gamata Quismo. By the way, going back doon sa ministry, may gusto akong idadagdag, no? For us Christians, kasi we have the threefold ministries of Jesus Christ are the ministry of preaching, teaching, and healing. Again, I'll be using my references United Methodist. That's why we have institutionalized these ministries. Actually, that's why in 1903 we established Harris Memorial College to respond to the Ministry of Teaching. In 1906, we established Mary Johnson Hospital to respond to the Ministry of Healing. And in 1907, we established Union Theological Seminary to respond to the Ministry of Preaching. And later on, in 1946, we have this Wesleyan University, Philippines, Philippine Christian University, and then other colleges and universities, because we would like to institutionalize and carry out these threefold ministries of Jesus Christ.
Thank you, Dr.
And then
Mary.
when we say, by the way, ministry, we have different fields of ministry. Our advocacy work is also part of our prophetic ministry. Not only pastoral ministry, we have also prophetic ministry. That's why we have the Board of Church and Society, and we have advocacy groups and different programs.
Thank you, thank you. I think there's no more question here in the chat box. Actually, this came from Mr. Okay, thanking all the speakers for their lectures. However, this is another question. I think this is for Dr. Eugenio. Is revolutionary thinking a part of innovation in ministry?
Thank you. I think this is also a question for Dr. Miranda kasi innovation yung kanyang.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think both of you should answer that
Yeah.
one.
Revolutionary thinking. Anong ibig sabihin ng revolutionary thinking? The word revolutionary is a tricky adjective at this point. So, Kuya Alan, Dr. Alan, or can you explain what is revolutionary thinking?
Okay, you can unmute yourself, Mr. Bautista, if you're around, or Dr. Bautista, if you want to clarify your question addressed to our speakers. Sir Alan Bautista, I think Dr. Eugenio is not
Siguro,
around.
so let me define revolutionary thinking according to my
Okay.
understanding, so that okay, if revolutionary thinking means
Here's
that
the results from a search.
sorry about that. If revolutionary thinking means that it is groundbreaking, it is non-conventional, it is brand new, it is imaginative, it is unheard of. Yes, that is an integral part of innovation. Kaya nga yung emphasis natin is creative imagination. Parang Star Trek, di ba? Those of you who have watched Star Trek, they have cell phones before in Star Trek, and then now we have cell phones. So that kind of revolutionary mentality of imagining a future that is not heard of yet, and then you strive towards it. If that is evolutionary thinking, then yes, that is very, very important.
Thank you, Dr. Eugenio. And also Dr. Miranda, she wants to share something. You're still on mute. Ayan pa. Kindly unmute yourself, Dr. Miranda. Wala po ba sa inyo ang control? Okay.
To unmute.
Ayan.
Okay, that's it, exactly. Simply put, revolutionary thinking is thinking out of the box. That's what we mentioned a while ago. I think the three of us put that together in a different context, but they blend. Okay, when we unleash the power of the mind to think out of the box, just like what we are doing right now.
Mhm.
Different ideas, but it surely blended. And we came up with a creative idea as to how we implement uh, Christian education in this context. This is revolutionary indeed. But when we put it together, as I said, create a team and come up with a concrete measure by which we will be able to implement that, that's a revolutionary measure put to action, which is already innovation. So in that context, everything can be revolutionary. I can speak here and you say there, I don't agree with you. Fine, then let's meet halfway. I want to hear from where you are speaking. And maybe my mind will open to some opportunities that I haven't seen from my perspective. That is the beauty of revolution.
Thank you, Dr. Miranda.
Can I also
Okay,
add,
Dr.
Doctor?
Melia. Okay.
Well, I would like also to say that to be revolutionary is an inherent character of the church, of all of us. I'm very modernist because I'll be using this one. No? We have this foundational, sustaining, and critical side that we should have. Foundational because it gives dignity, identity, and meaning. Sustaining because everything, even our education, must be nurturing and humanizing. But it must be critical, and that revolutionary side is part of our of the critical side. What does it mean? It breaks new ground by challenging current values so that people will be able to see reality from another perspective. Kasi kung wala yun, maging fossilized tayo. No, we belong to archaic na siya, hindi na siya relevant. So it should always have the capacity to break new grounds by challenging current values so that people will be able to see reality from another perspective. Kasi dynamic ang life, dynamic ang education, dynamic even ang ating faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Melia. I think this will be the last question. This is directed to Dr. Eugenio. Do you think being revolutionary might lead to extremism?
Um, Definitely, people will interpret new ideas as extreme. So that's unavoidable. Every time we create innovations that have not been heard before, we can always be accused of extremism. And so that's let's say, a necessary side of the coin, because there will always be traditional thinkers who will always oppose and always see all the negativities involved in all innovative innovations.
Thank you.
Dagdag ng konti uli,
Okay,
Dr. Willie.
Dr. Melia.
Kaya
Okay.
that's the reason why we have actually interfaith and
Yes.
interfaith dialogue, because we want to do away with extremism.
Mhm.
No? By giving space to others, we will be able to see reality from another perspective, because they have also something to contribute for the enhancement of life, for the dignity of human life. Kaya yung extremist, actually, ito yung sila lang exclusivism would lead to extremism. That's why yung challenge even to us yesterday by Ate Seya is to do away with this by having this interfaith dialogue, ecumenical openness.
Yes. Hence, this kind of gathering was made possible because of that. Okay. So thank you so much, our beloved experts, who share their lectures this morning. So, as we end this morning session, may I have the honor to introduce to you the organizing committee of this very first virtual national consultation on Christian education. So first and foremost, Dr. Greg Tabios Pawilen, our two deaconesses, Deaconess Chita Framo, Deaconess Eloida Lindo, Miss April Umali Macan, and yours truly, Dr. Wilfredo Ramos as the chair. And of course, with the guidance of the president of Wesleyan University Philippines, Judge Benjamin Tergano, whose idea made this gathering possible. Thank you very much, dear participants, and of course, our lecturers since yesterday for joining us for this groundbreaking event. We hope that you will join us once again next time during a national gathering like this. But of course, we will still have the part two for the reflection portion of this webinar and the closing worship this afternoon. And I am hoping that we will all stay until the end of this event. Let us now have our lunch and let us see each other again this afternoon. So, God bless you. See you once again this afternoon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless po.
Announce the time. Ayun, 1
Okay.
o'clock.
We'll start at 1 p.m. So I think it would be better for you not to turn off your gadgets kasi po we are experiencing a problem in the internet connection because of the maintenance. Kaya po dyan na lang po, wag nyo na pong patayin in order for us to be logged in until the end of the webinar. So sige po, kita-kita po tayo ulit mamaya. Thank you once again for your effort. So at this point, yung pong mga naka-online sa atin, we have 176 participants. Huwag na po kayong umalis, and even those who are watching via YouTube live, salamat po, just stay put. And we will still continue until this afternoon for our closing worship. God bless you po.
Thank you very much. Siguro we can turn off yung live YouTube live.
Yes po, turn off the phone and then we can have the background music.
Yeah. Kung mga gusto magkwentuhan, magkumustahan, you can
Sige
do it.
po. Kwento po.
Thank you. Thank you to the speakers, Dr. Miranda, Dr.
Thank you po.
Trixie. Dr. Miranda was my former dean and professor. Proud student here, ma'am. Ate Connie, Doc Dick, thank you. Thank you.
Salamat.